I guess I didn't have the authenticator.
All right, we're going to call council meeting to order this Tuesday, February 11th. Thank you to those of y'all that took time to come out, and especially with the weather. Not a night that you want to go out if you don't have to, but appreciate people taking the time to do that. I know some of y'all have to be here, and some of y'all choose to be here, and appreciate that. All right, we're going, if you would stand with us, we will do the invocation, also the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'll say a little bit about the pastor and also our Pledge of Allegiance bio. Thank you. Who are we missing? Come on. Oh, you're on.
We ready to pray now?
Yes,
All
we are.
right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight, Lord, acknowledging the fact that you're our maker and our creator, and for that we're so grateful. And then for those of us, Lord, who have put our faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, we're also your children, and for that we're very, very grateful. We're thankful to live in America, and Lord, to enjoy the privileges of our country, and Lord, how you've established it with the government and other things in cities, and Lord, help us to always acknowledge that to you and your faithfulness to us. Lord, we ask you, as we come before you tonight, that you would help our leaders, help our mayor, our city council, those who serve in leadership positions in the city of Villa Rica. Lord, that you would give them wisdom as far as how to direct and go forward with our city. And Lord, that it might be a city that's pleasing to you, and Lord, that is enjoyed by the citizens here. And Lord, we ask for those in the audience, Lord, that they would respect our leadership, and that as they come and share their concerns, that they would do that in a way, Lord, that would be acceptable before you as how we discuss things. And Lord, to always be willing to, even when we don't agree, to love other people and to learn how that we can agree to disagree. And so, Lord, I just ask now that you would be with us again. Bless this meeting tonight. Give our city council and, Lord, our mayor and leaders, give them wisdom as they think about going forth in this city. And, Lord, may they think about the people and the citizens. And we ask, Lord, that you would just help us now and to perform this meeting in a way that's honorable to you. And we ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. Officer Mark Bishop.
Yes, ma'am. Where would you like me to stand?
That's fine as long as you talk nice and loud.
I can do that. Y'all join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Officer Bishop. Our prayer tonight was presented by Kevin Kersey, also known as Preacher, high school diploma from Lehigh and Thomaston, Georgia, bachelor's of arts and major in theology and minor in psychology. Boy, you've done a lot of things in Tennessee Temple University. He's married to Janet Wilson Kersey, 41 years, congratulations. 4 children, son-in-law, 2 grandchildren. I'm not going to read them all off, Kevin, if that's okay. Pastoral ministry, Pastor Kersey planted the Cornerstone Baptist Church at South Van Wert in Villa Rica. Now it's Highview Church in May of 1984, and served as the lead pastor for over 30 years, and is presently serving as an associate pastor of New Georgia Baptist Church. His connection with the city is with the departments of Street Department, Water Department, Wastewater Department, Community Service Supervisor. Thank you, Kevin. Also, Corporal Mark Bishop, married to Andrea Bishop for 35 years this October. You have 3 adult children, Megan, Hannah, and Dakota, and 1 granddaughter, Violet. Retired from Marietta Police Department with 32 years of service. You don't look old enough to have 32 years of service there. Okay. And retired from the Navy Reserve with 28 years of service. Have been employed with Villa Rica Police Department since October 2nd of 2022, and am currently assigned to B shift. Thank you, officer. All right, we have some ceremonial presentations at the beginning of the meeting tonight. The first one for 5 years of service, that'll be Public Works. I'm looking for the presenter. I wasn't sure whether to look for you or Hal or who was doing the presentation.
He's gonna leave me up here. Wants to stand in the front, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely, yep, you have to look at everybody.
So 5, I guess, long years. It's been short. I don't know. It's been.
Hold the mic up close, hold that mic up close.
Can you hear me?
We're getting
I
signals.
appreciate your dedication, your hard work. We went through a lot, but it's been good. And we've had a lot of fun, and I appreciate you.
I guess that means I go down and get a picture, don't I? Well, I thought they might want to get one all
I
by
did.
themselves.
I did. I got one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well, a good one is COVID. It was me, him, and 2 others. We shed some sweat and tears.
You guys did all the work, is that it? Well,
Yeah, along with, it wasn't just us, but
okay, it's not going to make sense for me to go back and forth. So we've got another recognition. This is for 25 years, and this is for Officer Brian Finley. Chief, you got this one. Can you hear me okay? I'm looking at Joel back there.
So we're honoring Sergeant Brian Finley, 25 years. Wow. He started when he was 12. Brian came to us from the state. He worked for the state for 6 years, what's called now the motor carrier units. He came to Villa Rica 25 years ago this week, and he served in patrol, and then he became an investigator, and now he's the sergeant over investigations and has been in that position since I've been here. And the thing about Brian, if you want to describe him in one word, is consistent. You don't have to worry about him. He's going to do his job. He's going to do an awesome job. He does it right. You never have to worry about him doing anything to embarrass the department, embarrass the city. He is very thorough. So what we do with him is any high-profile cases, any political cases, that can have real political problems, we put with him because we know it's going to be done exactly right and everything's going to be perfect. He documents everything, and I just appreciate him so much, and I appreciate what he's meant to me. He has been a huge asset to our department, and so thank you so much for what you do. You never have to worry about anything with Brian. He does just an awesome job, so thank you so much.
You want mine just to you?
that's fine. Whatever you think.
You gonna stay home?
That was easier than what I asked him. I asked him if he'd stay 20 more years. You know what, I'll just go ahead and use this, it'll be easier than trying to lean over that way. Okay, next recognition, 5 years of service. I know I saw you. Leanne Preston. Tracy, thank you.
So I had to write my stuff down. I stumble around a little bit. So 5 years is not quite 25, but I don't want to screw it up. So Leanne, you started work with the city before I did, so I actually should have Tara over here doing this because she's been around a little while. But it's my duty, so I'll do it. So Leanne is the proud, meet Leanne Preston, everybody. Leanne is the proud mother of 6 children, and she has 5 grandchildren. She and her husband Eddie live in Villa Rica. Some of you may know her from her years of employment at the Villa Rica High School. I think she worked there for about 12 years. All of her children went through the Villa Rica cluster schools and participated in recreational programs, and now her grandchildren are participating in our recreational programs. And I think you even have a family member that coaches as a volunteer coach. So they run deep into the Villa Rica community. Leanne's employment with the city and the programs division started just before COVID made its nasty appearance, literally 1 month before the city shut down during the pandemic. So in that short time, she started planning our summer camp program for that following summer. Needless to say, that program was put on hold, but it was a doozy of a program when it came back. The recreation department has bounced back with a vengeance from the pandemic, and a large part of that has been due to the tireless efforts made by Leanne. She has started new programs and events, enhanced long-standing programs and events. She has continued to seek out new areas for us to venture into. We're looking into doing some special needs programs that we haven't ever done, so we're looking into doing some of that, and this is a whole departmental effort, but Leanne is going to probably take the lead. Each and every event that Leanne has planned has gotten better the next time because she catches the details and adds those special touches to them. Her whole goal is to provide an enjoyable and wholesome family-friendly experience to all who participate. She is a great teammate, a dedicated employee, a loving mother, a loving grandmother. She loves her community and in general is just a wonderful person. So I just want to thank you for all the great work that you do and for being a good employee and a great teammate. And congratulations on 5 years of service for the City of Villa Rica Recreation Department.
Yeah, turn it.
Okay, come back.
So this one's a little different. It's not every day that we recognize Home Depot, but I knew something was up when I saw y'all come in with the aprons. Ethan, you're doing this one? Come on up, guys and gal.
This should be the 5 year right here.
Oops, excuse me.
So we really just wanted to take a moment, shout out to Diana and Hal both. They kind of wanted to get this going for you guys, but you guys do so much for us. Donations, the customer service, always reaching out to make sure, if we need anything, just like the ice melt during the snowstorm. So there's just been multiple occasions where you guys have really reached out and helped the city, and I've enjoyed the partnership. I know there's a lot of other departments that have enjoyed the partnership, so this is just a very small token to show recognition for you guys. Thank you. You're Paul West.
Now you go back and work.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
It'd probably be difficult to name off the different things that Home Depot has helped us with, but I know sometimes it might be just all the planters where they donated the flowers and everything downtown. So there's been a variety of things, but that's one I happen to know of. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
We have one change to the agenda.
Okay.
We've been requested to remove item E1 about the bylaws, Main Street. Take that off the agenda.
Okay, so we're going to remove item E1.
And I'll make a motion to adopt the revised agenda.
I wanted to remove another item. I wanted to remove A3 as well and table that till next time.
I think we have to make a formal,
Yeah, if we're going to table it.
yeah, if we're
Okay.
yeah, we'd have to have some sort of formal motion to do that.
Yeah, there could be a motion when we get to that point in the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. All in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
Thank you. Right, as we move into public comment, I've been asked so that people will be clear on the public comment policy to share this with you, so bear with me. It's a little longer than the statement I used to read, but, okay, so, public comment will be held at all regular meetings of the mayor and city council. Each speaker must register to speak by means of the public comment sign-in sheet prior to the start of the meeting, which is usually right out here in the foyer and sits there. Well, it says the sign-in sheet will be removed within the first 10 minutes of the start of the regular meeting. All public speakers must state their name and address after they are recognized by the mayor before they speak, and we would ask that you also include if you are a resident within city limits, although you can speak whether you're in city limits or not. In the interest of fairness to other people wishing to speak, all organizations or groups shall select a spokesperson representative. An example might be if an HOA was here, they might have their president or board member speak for their group. Each speaker shall limit comments to 3 minutes with a maximum of 20 speakers or a total of 60 minutes of total public comment. Each speaker shall promptly conclude all comments when his or her time has expired. All remarks should be addressed to the council as a whole and not any single member unless in response to a question from a member. Each person addressing the city council shall do so in an orderly manner and shall not engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the council meeting. Personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks also shall not be allowed towards staff or the elected body. City council shall not act relative to any public comment during the meeting. That doesn't mean we won't respond to it, just means we can't take a formal action on a comment. Public comments requiring a response shall be made by city council or a staff member in the form of a letter. Although, obviously, if there's something that we can stay around after the meeting, someone can answer that question easily for you. We'd be more than glad to do that, or a staff member. I will not be reading this every month, but it was asked that I read it tonight just because some of it is a little new. All right, so we're going to move to public comment at this time, and I've got the sign-up sheet. Greg Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Greg Roberts, 2142 Birkdale Street, Villa Rica. I am in the city. Just a couple of things, and it really piggybacks off of last week's work session. The water sewer rates component that was discussed a week ago, the representatives here speaking to that. I had an issue that they had a lot of information that they put on the TV. You guys expressed it too, but I just want to express it from a citizen's point of view that's trying to pay attention. We should have had that information. It should have been on the agenda. What I suggest is if there's going to be information that's not ready for the council meeting, it should be delayed for another meeting. which I know that's easier said than done, but that information should have been readily available to have been looked at earlier that day. And it was still not on there today as of 4 o'clock, but maybe it has impact, maybe it does not. The other thing is the 180-day moratorium that I guess you guys will be looking at here momentarily. I understand that you do need to do it, but I agree with Councilmember Mumtahan. It does put a little blight on the city of Villa Rica for developers that are looking to come here, because you don't always know who's looking to come, and it may be something you really wanted. And so I know specifically a Longhorn was mentioned last week, and I think it was just used as an example. But Rockmart of all places, they're building a Longhorn in Rockmart. There's more people here, so I know that Longhorn, whoever makes those decisions, they're not so foolish as to overlook a good base. But I guess they're trying to compete with the steakhouse up there. I highly recommend it for anybody that wants to go. But that's the only reason I can figure they go up there is I think they'd have a much better audience here. But and then the other item that came up that is not on tonight's agenda had to do with things around the new Publix on Mirror Lake Boulevard and the proposed left turn. And I know Ms. DeSanto mentioned there's a meeting tomorrow, but I'm assuming that's an internal meeting with a developer or property owner or something. That was mentioned last week. But really, my comment here is, if the city of Villa Rica, if there's no staff member that's sort of giving the final check off on these projects, because I can tell you, any one of us can go out there and I could name you about 8 things that should have really been done a little different if somebody had just looked at it. But I suspect no one on staff is in charge of that kind of thing. And so, not that contractors have been allowed to do just what they want to do, but for example, they could have put a dedicated right turn lane coming out, leaving the new road to go toward I-20. But no, they made a huge wide lane that a car can't usually make a right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Amy McCoy.
I'll be reading a statement. Amy McCoy, 9938 Ashton Old. I'm seeking clarity on the establishment
Ms.
of the
McCoy, I'm sorry, your address?
9938 Ashton
Yes,
Old.
ma'am. City resident or no?
No, no
Okay.
city resident.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I get the time to restart, please?
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm seeking clarity on the establishment of the Ethics Committee within the city of Villa Rica. Is this council truly committed to governing in the best interests of its residents, or is more focused on personal agendas and maintaining control at the expense of the community? It seems as though I were getting more calls on people saying that they knew it was me that turned in the ethics complaint, when I thought it was not supposed to be shared with anybody until the board had actually been established. After listening to recent discussions on WLBB, I was deeply disappointed by the dismissive tone taken by the mayor and the city manager regarding public participation in council meetings. While you found humor in the idea that residents should be more engaged, there is nothing amusing about the active and intentional displacement of members of this community. Your own comments acknowledge the impact of residents were not properly notified multiple times, including the council meeting you held on October 24th. That led to an executive session when more residents showed up, yet you continued to shift the blame onto them for the lack of attendance at meetings that, in many cases, were never scheduled. Councilman Montahan remarks further highlighted this issue when he also was on WLBB, saying that the residents jumped the gun with their concerns, that they did not show up for town hall meetings. But I question, when was those town hall meetings scheduled? Since you said you were waiting on the school board and the county to help approve that, but that happened in December 2023. Despite that, it took 7 months before it was finally paused, though in reality there was no such pause that ever occurred. Trespassers were still continue violating private property rights, and the community's repeated requests for transparency have been met with evasion and, at times, unprofessional email responses. Very emotional, very unprofessional. I would like to know how many town hall meetings were ever scheduled. To date, February 11th, 2025, this community has not received clear direction as to where this road is actually going. When you review minutes, they are not updated properly, and I find that the restriction on public comments just further lacks accountability and unacceptable behavior. I find that a lot of the things that you guys have been doing have been a dereliction of duty. Additional serious concerns regarding environmental hazards and potential fraudulent approvals on grant fundings have been raised, and yet no responses. Residents were issued into a TAD that were amended after it was approved. They should also receive a moratorium on future taxes and also should be retroactively paid back. It is evident that this administration has failed to uphold its oath of office and continued pattern of intimidation, negligence, and the lack of transparency, again, constitutes a dereliction of duty. The fear of retribution against residents who speak out against this long-standing issue in Villa Rica.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Josh Evans.
Joshua Evans, 640 Cleveland Street, Villa Rica, Georgia. I'm out in the city. Been there 46 years. I guess my whole issue tonight would be the purchase of the Jet Vac combo truck. Where to start with that fiasco when you buy it? I can name you 100 reasons not to. I doubt anybody's going to listen to them. Show me one that you have that has operated one. Truly operated it. Y'all going to build a dump pad and a wash down pad at the West Plant? You're going to have to, you buy that truck. You can't suck up sewage out of a lift station and then go suck dirt. It's going to be compromised then. Then you got to take it to a line landfill. Not a regular landfill, but a line landfill. The nearest one's in Alabama. So I would truly question whether to buy one. You're not going to keep up with the flow if it pumps down with a 1,500 or a 2,000 gallon little vac truck. Look, I worked for a company, Paulding County, rake straw would go down, Bentwater. 4,500 gallons trucks couldn't keep up with it. Are you trying to tell me that one 2,000 gallon truck's going to keep up with that? No way. How'd we get in this capacity problem too with the sewer, right? How we got in all this infrastructure problem? Doctoring reports, falsifying reports. Look at it. I also said that phase 2, the sector where I believe it's Jefferson was good. I believe that was good on the report. Well, that sector wasn't good. I believe last year's sector up at Mirror Lake was good too, right? It ain't good because you got illicit discharges with grease going down the storm drains, out of dumpster pads. Tie everything on that should be tied on the sewer right now, and you do not have the capacity that you think you have. Y'all better restructure this city, and you better start with your staff. You better restructure. Get you some new ones, because the ones you got ain't working. And we're tired of paying free checks.
Thank you, sir. Pam White.
Pamela White, 102 Anderson Road. I want to ask the mayor, why is it that she, along with interim city manager and some of the select council, is able to go down to WLBB and spread misinformation about how you all are communicating with our community. But our Ward 1 representative have never went. She's never been asked questions about why we're here, how our community got in that shape. Y'all want her to be silent. It's bad that, to say that she's been a representative for 30 years, and a lot of stuff, when you went into your different meetings and your little hidden meetings, you didn't inform her. You didn't inform her. Don't look like that, Leslie, you know. And it's bad. We want her to be given the opportunity to go and speak and be asked the questions as to what do you know about this. You know, Matthew, as you was engaging with me earlier.
Miss
and,
White, Miss White.
You're going to redo my time?
There's a reason I read the comments to try not to either point people out in the audience. Please address all of us. You are more than welcome to please address the governing body as a whole.
Okay, well, me and Matthew
Please.
talked earlier, so I don't think he mind. But I oblige to what you're saying, but we talked earlier, and I let him know if he saw it that I talked to him at the meeting. So with you saying, Matthew, that we you know, if you had land that the city wanted, that you would cooperate and you would do it, you know, however you know would do it. We wouldn't be given the opportunity that you would be given, because you would be treated with a different measure of respect.
Miss White, please.
Listen,
we're gonna if you have an issue where you believe somebody has done something.
No, we had the conversation.
Please address the body as a whole.
What you did. So my thing is, we were not notified. So when y'all go down and say we gave notice, we gave proper notification, you know that's far from the truth, Leslie. And some of the discord, in my opinion, that you spread amongst this city, that's the reason why your council act the way they do towards one another. Because it spreads it causes division. It causes a lot of division. You keep trying to push this road because you want something significant behind your name.
Miss White, you need to sit down. You need to sit down.
But tell me why.
And read what we said about having public comment. This is not an accusatory time. Please, if you have an issue with the way we've handled things, that's fine. Please do not call out individual council people and make accusatory things.
I said your entire council.
I've asked twice. Okay.
You said don't call any names to include everybody. So I said entire council. So now you're saying what I'm saying doesn't satisfy you or it offends you. I'm sorry if
Miss White, go ahead and finish up.
Oh, thank you. And you know, and just to know that we may possibly lose some good council people because it appears that you're already on that train to get rid of them. Your diabolical behavior has to stop. It has to stop. We're tired of it.
Alita Farmer.
Good evening. Alita Dobbs Farmer, representing 216 Anderson Road, Villa Rica, Georgia, in the city of Villa Rica. Just piggybacking on what Ms. Whitehead brought up earlier, without calling anybody's names, but I speak to the council and the members of city council as a whole to address the interview that was held on WLBB. There was questions asked about were we given proper notification? Well, just as a reminder to the members of today, that on Thursday, September 30th, 2021, in Times of Georgia, it was an ad placed in the Times of Georgia in regards to what was presented as notification. The city of Villa Rica, 571 West Georgia Bankhead Highway, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180, the telephone number, fax number. Notice a public hearing by the Planning and Commission and City Council of the city of Villa Rica. Public hearing will be conducted by the Planning Commission on Tuesday, October the 5th, 2021 at 6 p.m. by the City Council on Tuesday, October the 12th, 2021 at the Holt Bishop Justice Center, Municipal Court Room, 101 Main Street, Villa Rica, Georgia, regarding rezoning. RA-0821. The City of Villa Rica Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing for consider rezoning by Fuquay Acquisition 2 LLC to rezone 61.1 acres of property located near Mirror Lake Boulevard and Shoreline Parkway from industrial low density to medium density commercial. And so I'm going to skip down. The rezoning would impact partial V0501800085 and V0501800062. But what's interesting is this property are located in the land lot of 176 in 2nd District of Douglas County. The properties are located in Ward 1. Ward 1 does not say Durden, McCullum, Anderson, Ruby Street. So how are y'all notifying us? Yes, you did put a notification in your paper. You're correct. You followed the code. You know the law. But did you put it in there where we could identify it as it was our properties? So I'm posing it to you. All the ones I have pulled from the time of Georgia reads the same way. As we know, Shoreline Parkway, it does not encompass anywhere where we live. Mirror Lake does not encompass where we live. Think about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Entertain, council updates.
Mayor, I don't know
Yes.
if this is the right time to bring up the comment regarding the vac machine or not. Unfortunately, I was not at the work session last week because I was bit by the bug going around with everybody. But I wanted to just point out, because I did watch the meeting and did a little bit of research on the vac machine. And from my understanding, and one thing that I really found interesting that I wanted to point out is the fact of the underground, the congestion with everything that's underground now. We have power, we have fiber lines, we have just different utilities, right? And the issue with any of these being hit, of course, locates would come out and locate each one of those lines beforehand. But in order for that department to be able to work around those, they have to hand dig. And what that is doing is we're creating additional work for our employees. This vac machine allows for it's better equipment for being able to work efficiently. But what I wanted to point out was that if I contacted a friend of mine who is an owner of a company that lays the fiber lines, and I just asked her exactly what kind of fee would be applied should one of the city employees hit one of those lines. And she, of course, shared with me that it depends on which line it is, depends on size and whatnot. But it can cost anywhere from $20,000 to $1 million should they hit those fiber lines. So I understand that $550,000 when we're talking about purchasing a vac machine is a lot. I do believe that it's important to point out that should a city employee hit one of those lines, it's a lot I mean, we're talking about a significant amount of money. So I just wanted to point that out because I know that the comment came up earlier, but I just thought it was fair to go ahead and point that out.
Thank you. Any other comments from council as far as updates? Oh, yes. Councilman McCoy.
I'd just like to address something Pam said in the public comment, is that maybe one of the reasons, and it kind of piggybacks onto what Mr. Roberts said, one of the reasons we may not have a Longhorn or these things is because we have spent this last year, us up here, I'm not blaming the citizens, but in complete and utter chaos. We have gone through, Diana, our third city manager, and people who invest, they do their research and they look at the city council meetings and they look at all this stuff and they decide where they want to invest. And I don't know, I don't have data to back it up, but it's just a thought that maybe that's why Rockmart is getting this stuff and we're not, is because we've just had complete chaos. And I hate to address that elephant in the room, but I think at some point, everybody, I can only speak for myself, but at some point, everybody needs to be accountable for their actions, and everyone needs to, not make some story like, well, I really screwed up, but this is why it's great. That everybody should be accountable and admit it, and that's what we've done. And all I can say is, I can only speak for myself, but I have complete faith in this council that we all can do better and we all will do better. And so that is what I wanted to say in regard to some of the comments made in public comment.
Anything else from council? Well, I have to say I appreciate the stability that we started to have as of July 1st, both with Jeff and you coming in as deputy city manager and now stepping in as interim as of November 1st. And it's much appreciated. And I know it's a lot of work and you took on a lot, but I feel like with our finance department and the things we're seeing that we're starting to stabilize more, but it takes time. But thank you, appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go through the consent agenda. These are items that we discussed at the work session, and they will be voted on basically as a package. And obviously are not anything that would require a public hearing. Number 1, Northwoods Phase 2, final plat. Fairway 16, final plat. Number 3, the downtown gym floor installation. Number 4, FY25 budget amendments 131 through 132. Number 5, approve the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority loan resolution and execute the agreement for the North Bypass 12-inch water main. Number 6, the 2025 concert and festival proposal for artist and production services. Number 7 has to do with the maintenance of the Hillcrest Cemetery. Number 8, temporary limited alcohol pouring license for the Georgia Food Industry Education Foundation. And number 9, the purchase of a combination vacuum jet truck. All right, we'll move on to item.
I'll make a motion to
I'm
adopt
sorry,
the
make a
consent
motion.
agenda.
Yes, to adopt the agenda, or the, the consent agenda. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
Okay, thank you. All right, A, governing body, HB 581, the floating homestead exemption. And Ms. Hallman will be doing the presentation here. This will have a public hearing and an opportunity for comment in relation to this item.
Good evening.
Evening.
Interim Deputy City Manager, CFO. We'll start off by just giving a quick presentation. It's the same one that we've been that was provided last week. I apologize for not being here. I got bit by the bug as well. So this will be the third and final hearing regarding House Bill 581. But for the ones that maybe have not seen this presentation or want to see it again, we'll just jump right into it. To give you a little bit of background on this presentation, we'll just talk about some general information, some points of interest, the flossed, which is the sales tax that may be voted on if certain things happen. We'll actually talk about the floating homestead exemption itself, the process in that, and the schedule that we're following in order to make the decision whether to opt out or not. So we'll start off with House Bill 581 general information. As you know, it was passed by the General Assembly during the 2024 session, and it was signed by the governor on April the 18th of 2024. In November of last year, there was a statewide referendum that was passed, and it would be effective January the 1st of this year. It did provide several significant changes impacting local government revenue and digest compliance. Regarding the House Bill 581 floating homestead exemption, this implements a statewide floating homestead exemption for all local governments, which includes counties, cities, and school boards. A floating homestead is a special type of homestead exemption designed to offset or reduce increases in the taxable value to the property. It's also referred to as a base year or a value offset exemption. Freezes are a type of floating homestead exemption, but do not have the annual inflationary adjustment. Both Carroll and Douglas counties have the freeze homestead exemption. The House Bill 581 floating homestead exemption is unique because the base year is adjusted and will increase by a rate of inflation determined by the state revenue commissioner, which we're thinking that's likely going to be the CPI. House Bill 581 floating homestead exemption applies to special service districts in addition to the M&O, but does not apply to bond millage. So this would include our tax allocation district. The effect of House Bill 581 homestead exemption means that the taxable value of a home may only increase at a rate of inflation each year. Essentially controlling this will control how much value of a home can increase annually. Homeowners already granted a homestead will receive this exemption automatically, with the 2024 being the base year assessed value. For homes first receiving the exemption in later years, the base year assessed value will be the assessed value for the immediately preceding year. The value will be reset when the home is sold and is adjusted with any substantial property changes, like any additions, improvements to the home, a pool, any additions like that. Homeowners cannot transfer exemptions to new property, and the non-homestead property, with example like commercial, will continue to be valued at fair market. This is just an example using 2024 as your base value. Let's say that in 2024 your fair market home value was $250,000. Your assessed value of that is at 40%. So your assessed value would be $100,000. That would become your base value year. In 2025, let's say the CPI is 2%. So your new adjusted base value would now be $102,000. But let's say the assessors went out there and your home and it was valued at $110,000. What House Bill 581 does is allow you to increase the exemption so that your adjusted base value remains what it would have been just adjusted for CPI. So in this case, your assessed value came in at $110,000, so your floating homestead exemption would be $8,000 to get you back down to your $102,000. Then the next year, you start at your $102,000 becomes your new base year because of the CPI from the prior year. And let's just say that CPI again was 2%, so that would add another $2,040 to your adjusted base value. So your new adjusted base value for 2026 would be $104,040. Again, let's just say that your assessed value came in and it went from $110,000 to $115,000. So in order to get your base value back down to where it was only inflationary CPI adjusted, you can see you're floating. That's why they say floating, because it floats up or down, more up than down. Would go from an $8,000 floating homestead exemption, you would have a $10,960,000 adjustment, so that your new adjusted base value would then equal the $104,040. So that's where the floating comes in, is that your home is still going to be assessed for whatever the assessors assess your property, which is at the county level, but it's the floating homestead exemption that's going to increase, so that your base value ends up being what the CPI increase would have been. This is a table that I like and I don't like at the same time. This is probably a table that if you have watched any Carroll County Board of Education, maybe Carroll County, I'm not sure. We have all kind of shared this table to show what the impact would be if in prior years we had this floating homestead based on CPI. The reason I say I like it is it does give you an idea that there is a reduction in revenue based on the scenarios that we've presented. So I like that aspect of it. The part that I do not like is that there's so many variables that it's really hard to capture you can't capture every scenario within every year of what the exact impact is going to be. But this is just kind of giving you an idea that if you take, let's say, 2024, and you say, okay, our 40% property with homestead was $355 million. And our CPI for the previous year was 4.1%. Our percentage over the previous year, let's say our assessed values went up 18.29%. So if we took the CPI of 4.1 versus the 18.29 of what the actual assessed values would be, you could see that we would have lost $238,000 in 2024, because we would have generated, or the revenue would have came in, we would have adjusted our value of property with homestead down to 4.1% versus the 18.29%. So over the past 4 or 5 years, you can see that it totals just under the cumulative loss would be around $1 million. This slide, again, I'm putting it on here just because it is part of House Bill 581. But to be honest with you, based upon my conversations with some other entities, both in Douglas and Carroll, this is not going to be an option because, well, let me tell you what the FLOST is first. What House Bill 581 created is a new sales tax called a floating local option sales tax, or a FLOST. It authorized most governments with the new homestead exemption or equivalent to go for a referendum in November. It would be in November for an additional local option sales tax. This tax was to help governments with that loss in revenue by opting in or not opting out of House Bill 581. However, the caveat to that is all entities, except for Board of Education, because they're not eligible for FLOST, so all cities and the county have to opt in or not opt out of House Bill 581. If one city opts out, the FLOST is no longer on the table. On the Carroll side, I know for sure that there's one city that's already opted out. So all it takes is one city. So the floss on the November referendum for Carroll County is not going to happen. On the Douglas County side, I've reached out to the finance director, deputy city manager with Douglasville. They will vote on Thursday. Of course, nobody knows 100% what that vote may be, but there is a very good feeling that they will opt out. So what that means is there will be no opportunity for a floss on the Douglas County side either. So while this is in the House Bill 581, it was an option, but because of the constraints and what makes you eligible or not eligible, really, it's a moot point at this point for us, or for any entity. The process regarding House Bill 581, it allows governments, like we're going through the process, to at least consider opting out of this homestead exemption within our jurisdiction. We couldn't start this process until January 1 when the bill became effective. We may opt out, but after this deadline of being completed by March 1st, you don't have the option to opt out. However, the local delegation may pass a local act of the General Assembly to implement a local floating homestead exemption at any time. As you know, the process for us at least looking at the option of opting out is very similar to the millage rate hearings and advertising that we have to do during the digest and millage rate time. We have to have 3 public hearings, one occurring between 6 and 7 p.m. They have to be advertised in the paper at a certain size at a certain time. We've met all that criteria. We've issued the press release to the local media. After completing these steps, the local government may then adopt a resolution opting out and file with the Secretary of State by March 1st. And as I stated back last week, February the 4th at 10 a.m., we had our first public hearing. That evening, we had our second public hearing. And then after this presentation, you will be opening it up for the third public hearing. And then we would then ask for a vote on a resolution for opting out. So that is the end of my presentation. As far as recommendations from staff, we are recommending, as you can tell, if following the process of opting out. While we know this may not be a popular decision, we feel like from the financial aspect of the impact that it has on our digest and on our, of course, essentially our revenues, that for me, I feel like that the option of having a rollback millage rate and calculating what a rollback would be allows you that lever anyway to roll back some or roll back all the way. This puts an extra constraint and control from the state down to the local authority that further constrains you on how much revenue you're going to generate from property taxes. And I guess that is my concern. Is I know in the past we've tried to maintain a millage rate because just as everything else and values of homes are going up for an inflationary, the cost of doing business, even government business, increases. But I do say that in talking with Diana, I know that, or I kind of get a feeling of maybe where this vote may go. And so my only question or my only comment that I would say is if we decide not to opt out and the vote is to not do anything, because if you can either opt out or you just do nothing and you're in, is to please consider when we do bring you the digest and maybe make a recommendation of not rolling back, that now that you have the constraint of the digest only going up a certain percentage based on CPI, is to really strongly think about maintaining the millage rate and not rolling back, because at least we would be able to get some additional revenue due to inflationary costs, which is reasonable, 4 or 5%, whatever the state revenue commissioner sets it at, but maybe not to the extreme of what we've seen the past few years of 15, 18, 20% increases in assessed values. So.
Don't leave yet. Council, any questions while Ms. Holman's still standing here, or concerns that she needs to be up there for?
Yeah, just one. When we get to setting the millage rate, won't the information already be available as to who took the floating exemption and who didn't? And they always, is my understanding that if we take the floating exemption, it's just another option for the people, that they'll get the best of the whichever one benefits them the most. And that will be figured into the digest before we set the millage rate. Is that the way it'll work?
I don't know if I'm.
That's the way it works on the county level.
Yes.
Where there's already a floating
It would
homestead.
be, we would see on the digest the impact of the float for our portion.
Yeah.
At that, yes.
It will be taken into account by the time we see it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, she's still standing there, council? Okay, thank you. Right before we open up for public comment, because that can seem rather complicated, basically the council has a decision, and this is what it is. Either we do nothing, which means we are automatically opted in to this. It's automatic if we do nothing, according to the legislation, or we can choose to opt out of the floating homestead exemption. This exemption has nothing to do with the exemption that seniors get, say, from school taxes and that type of thing. It is a separate floating homestead exemption. Both counties, Carroll County and Douglas County, have a frozen one. That means there's no inflation value. When you get taxed on your home, it's the base rate of when you bought it. And that doesn't change unless you make an improvement. This one is floating, and it allows for some inflationary growth to be collected in taxes on our property, but it caps it. That's the floating homestead exemption. It caps how much that inflation value can go up that you would be taxed on. That's about the simplest I can try to explain it without all the other things. So that is what is before us, to either do nothing and be opted in, or to adopt a resolution to opt out of this floating homestead exemption. I have spoken to the city attorney about the time allowed for this type of public hearing, and we saw it as being different from, say, a zoning thing where we limit it to the 10 minutes for each side, because that doesn't really apply in this situation. So we're going to try to be as generous as we can. You'll still be, 3 minutes is still the max, but we want to give you this opportunity to speak. There are no two sides, so there's going to be 10 minutes for one group to speak and 10 minutes opposed, because this will just be as you come up and give your opinion. All right. There's no sign-up sheet for this, so basically it'll be the first one to the microphone. But we do still have, do we have the timer? 3 minutes? Yes, it's still the same. So it'll just be a matter of walking up, because there's no sign-up sheet. So if you wish to speak on either side of this, please approach the microphone. And just mention whether you're a city resident or not, because otherwise it doesn't impact you what we're doing here.
Christy Chastain, 239 Berkeley Drive, inside the city of Villa Rica. I won't go over the numbers that I went over last week because I realize a couple of you weren't here, but obviously you can see the recording. What I would reiterate is I am asking all of you to take no action on this item, leaving the city opted in to House Bill 581. The one thing I'm a little bit confused about is why the school boards and some of the cities inside the county are treating this like a sky is falling event. The county, Carroll County, has had a frozen homestead exemption for as long as I've been in my home, that's even more restrictive than what this one is. And somehow they've managed to have a reasonable budget every year just based off of natural growth. So I guess I don't understand the panic over this. So I am asking, please take no action on this.
Pamela White, 102 Anderson Road. My concern is, how does this affect our community since it's been put in a TAD? The only community in the city of Villa Rica that has been placed in this TAD. How does this affect our taxes? We haven't gotten any information on it other than, the notice about the bill being passed. But no one at the city level has notified us, and I don't know if that's something that you all are to do. But we want to know because, as I said, my taxes went up and I paid over $900 into the TAD itself. And I don't live in Mirror Lake. I don't live in Berkeley Park, Chadwick Place. I don't live in none of those places that would have, and I pay over $2,000 on Anderson Road. So is this something else? Is this a part of a tactic to try to continue to put pressure on us and raise our taxes to try to make our homes not affordable for us to pay it? So is that another way for the city to try to acquire our properties and stuff, to just tax us out? But we would like more information, and we do want the city to figure out a way to get us out of that TAD.
Amy McCoy, 9938 Ashton Old. Whether or not the proposed road is approved, residents are still owed the basic duty of infrastructure maintenance and equitable taxation. As I stated previously, residents were admitted into the TAD after it was voted on.
Ms. McCoy, this is a public hearing regarding House Bill 581.
And I'm going to it. So how many times have you had the assessor and tax commissioner come here to explain in this public notice about this bill, since it clearly impacts those in the TAD?
Ms. McCoy,
Yes, ma'am.
please state your opinion in regard to
I am
HB
definitely doing-
581.
I am doing that, and I appreciate you allowing me to finish my statement so that it can come across clearly to you. Thank you. Since if they were here, they can then properly address the concerns that you're voting on, again, tonight. You've had now 3 meetings. So you've had 3 meetings within 1 week. Those were improperly included in the TAD should not be forced to bear the financial burden, since there is no clear explanation onto how it will impact all residents. There are several interim employees giving information, but has any of them been to the Capitol to confirm the extension for this deadline? I know that it has passed out of committee, but it still awaits a floor vote. But it would be great if they would be able to follow up on this information themselves. The retroactive inclusion of residents into the TAD is another example of discriminatory and predatory policymaking, and it echoes the past injustices that should have not been placed in today's governance. Since there is no accurate information on whether you opting out or with this floating homestead, this is why it's crucial to have them a part of this meeting. Thank you. I hope that was clear enough for you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in regard to HB 581?
Alita Dobbs Farmer, 216 Anderson Road. In regards to this possible bill that may be voted on, I am concerned more so about the impact it has on our Ward 1, more so than the city as a whole, just because of the way that
these different bills have been proposed or laws have been enacted. And I don't have a problem with it because, again, if it's going to help the community, I don't have a problem. But it's not clear how it will help our community. And normally what happens here at City Hall or City Council meetings is that it's a generic vote with no specific area in mind or place in mind. But then we find out later on that it's impacting us more than others. So while you're hearing our concern tonight about HB 581, it's because we know from prior history that if we don't ask these questions up front, look y'all all in the eye, asking how it's going to impact Ward 1 and people that live in that area specifically, then what happens is we get comments about, oh, you should have came to public hearings and you should have made your concerns aware. So we're making our concerns aware to the people who's going to vote is going to count. But we need to make sure that we, specifically in Ward 1, is not impacted by decisions that better other parts of Villa Rica and don't take us in consideration. So again, please consider Ward 1 when you're making votes, because again, we are holding you accountable.
Anyone else? Just so you know, this was legislation that was passed at the state level and impacts any governing authority, school board, city, county. It treats everyone the same based on their decision across the entire state. So there's not where one thing would be treated differently. The same legislation applies to everyone equally, if that isn't clear. Attorney Drummond, how should we, since it either requires inaction, I know that because we don't actually, we have to at least have a consensus.
Right. If there's no motion to adopt a resolution opting out, then you're automatically in.
Okay, so what needs to happen here then is that someone would have to make a motion to opt out and it be seconded, and that would require a vote. If that doesn't get a motion or doesn't get a second, or there's no one that even requested it, then we're automatically opted in. So there's only one decision to make that requires a vote.
But Mayor, what if you call for a motion and there is no motion?
Then we are opted in because there would be no one that stepped forward to make a motion to opt out.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
So council, yes.
One clarification, as I said before, this is an option for the people. The people don't have to take it. As a matter of fact, they're going to apply whichever one's to your benefit. If the one you have now, if the exemption you have now is better than the floating exemption, you don't have to take the floating. If the floating helps you is better than the one you have now, they'll apply it. So just to be sure, we're all in the same boat on this one. If it helps us, they'll apply it. Otherwise, we'll keep what we got.
So whatever way this goes in or out, it applies to the whole city, not one area, not 2 or 3 areas, but this is for the whole city.
Just like if a county adopts it or the school board had adopted it, it would apply to all the schools in the county.
For
Yeah, for homestead.
Homestead properties.
Yes, only homestead.
Your primary residence.
If you own extra property or commercial property, this is about, on average, 28% of the tax digest. Those are the people that would be impacted. So you must reside in the home, otherwise it's not a homestead exemption.
And you have to apply for the homestead exemption before April 1st of every year. So So not every year. Not you don't have to apply for every year. But if you lived in your house for 5 or 10 years and you never applied for it, then you never got the homestead exemption. So you have to do it before April 1st. Once you apply for it, you're good forever, but until you sell your house or whatever. But so a lot of people I know, I'm sorry, but a lot of people in my ward I know my neighbors have lived in their home and they've never applied for the homestead exemption. Some people just think it happens at closing or something like that, but you have to actively go down and apply for your homestead exemption. So, sorry, Mayor.
So the in benefits us more than the out. Am I right or wrong?
It depends on how you look at it.
I'm trying to see who's gonna help. I mean, the best that's gonna help the citizen, not
Homestead properties will benefit. That's correct.
to stay in.
To stay in, homestead properties will receive a reduction.
A reduction in the amount they're taxed.
So if you were in the counties and you had you bought your house for $100,000, theirs is a freeze. So it's every year you're taxed on that $100,000, even if your house is now worth $300,000. So that's better than this floating homestead that they're now proposing. But you get the better of whatever's available to you. There's a number of there's homestead exemptions for veterans. There's a number of homestead exemptions out there.
So you're saying it's
The county does. We don't have.
out of it.
It's just one more option for the homeowner.
I was going to say, if
Stay
you,
in or stay out. To stay in or to get out.
If you stay in, if you opt out, then this is not an option for the homeowner.
If the city stays in, then when the tax bills are generated, if there are better homestead exemptions or better exemptions for them, then those exemptions will be applied. But if those exemptions, if there are not better exemptions, then they will still get the benefit of this exemption. The citizen will.
but there is no option, better exemption in the city limits.
Correct, yes.
That is your county property taxes, which is not pertinent to what we're doing here. All right, on the county level, it's different. They have a frozen one, and in most cases, that's going to be the best benefit because your base price that they're going to tax you off is what is going to be based on when you bought that house. And you get to keep that the whole time you live there until you sell your house. The only thing that would change that base value for your county taxes, you add a pool, you add an addition, your property value goes up. Otherwise, when you bought that house with your county taxes, it stays frozen. This one is only capped. So the county one does not apply to what the decision we are making right now. Only this for city taxes, floating homestead exemption. What it does compared to what is happening now is it caps how much the inflation value can go up on your property for taxing purposes. So in most cases, it is a benefit and savings to the property owner. If we stay opted in.
The city stays opted in.
If we choose to opt out, we have no floating homestead exemption. There is no cap. And that means during high inflationary times like 22 and 23, you do see your taxes go up a lot because we had some real big spikes. And as far as taxes, I did not always understand my taxes, but as a citizen, I took it upon myself to understand them, which meant I talked to the county commissioner. I learned what a floating homestead exemption was. I went down to the assessor's office to understand how my property was assessed, so I'd know for sure that I understood my bill. I understand it pretty well to explain it to people. I have also hosted a local meeting with the tax assessor here in Villa Rica to answer people's questions. But I would highly recommend that you do go, and I know that Diana has spent time with people explaining their tax bill to them. So we do have staff that are willing to do that.
And let me just because y'all were voting on this, whether to opt in or to opt out or do nothing, as far as filing a homestead, that is with your county tax commissioner's office. That is, I don't want that to get confused with, because this is something we are having to vote on, or y'all are having to vote on, that then there's additional paperwork that has to be filed with Villa Rica regarding your taxes. None of that has changed. So that was one of the questions that they had asked. That's why I decided to come up here, is you still have to go to your county tax commissioner's office to file for your homestead exemption and to see what other exemptions you may qualify for by April 1st.
Thank you.
In trust?
Those properties that are in a trust.
That would have to be relayed to the tax commissioner.
If you do not reside in the house, you don't get any homestead exemptions. And if you're not over 65 and applying to make sure you get the school taxes off, those don't come off. So people's properties are evaluated differently based on the exemptions they qualify for. If you do not live in it, you don't qualify for any any homestead exemption.
And the tax
It has to be
commissioner's
your
office.
homestead. Right. County is who does our taxes and everything else. All right, so I'm going to just revert this back to council and leave it open if there is anyone that wants to propose a motion. Going once, going twice. There is no motion from the council, which means the council has taken no action, which means we are opted in. All right, now, that's item 1. A2, water sewer rates and tier structure recommendation. Ms. Hallman.
Okay.
Lucky you.
Lucky
Again.
me. You were given a presentation last Tuesday regarding the water and sewer rate study that was performed by Carter and Sloop. And they had, I believe, 3 different options. Of course, I won't go over the entire presentation, but I will just briefly kind of summarize my cover sheet regarding what we're recommending as staff as what option to consider. You can see that the previous water sewer rate study was completed in 2017. And Carter and Sloop was asked to do complete an updated rate study based on the following reasons. I would say the main reason, and we've talked about it, I know, each budget year to get ready for the renewal of the intergovernmental agreements with both Carroll County Water Authority and Douglas County Water Authority. We had a very, very attractive contract IGA with Carroll County for many years. Our prior per 1,000 gallons we were paying was $2.77. The new IGA with Carroll County is $4.95, which is a $2.18 increase, or percentage-wise over 78% increase. Douglas County, we were paying $4.40. New is $4.50. Was a 10-cent increase, which was a 2.27% increase. Just as a reminder, right now we purchase about 45.5% of our water supply. So that was reason number 1, to look at our current rates, prepare what our rates needed to be so that we could keep the water and sewer funds sustainable, financially stable, and healthy. The next item, while we wanted to look at the rate, is to make sure that we were going to have enough revenue generated for all current and future debt service requirements. As you know, we have a bond out there, and it's around $29 million, still in principal to pay. We also have some GFA loans. While it is at a very nice, attractive rate, it is still debt. That totals almost $9.5 million. So when you add that to the bonds, we have about $38.8 million in current debt service requirements. And just like with any water and sewer operations, you have aging infrastructure and future infrastructure improvements. Every year in the budget, they are a separate fund. They're an enterprise fund, which means we are to run it like a business. There are aging infrastructure improvements and just overall growth and improvements in our infrastructure that has to be made. And this list is just a list of what was approved in the 2025 budget for all of our infrastructure improvements, from utility administration, wastewater treatment plant, water treatment plant, and collection and distribution, which totals $17.5 million. And last but not least, the rate study allowed us to analyze our customer data and our profiles. We were able to see the percentage of accounts per water category. They went over these in the presentation. The percentage of consumption per water category, percentage of revenue per water category, or percentage of residential accounts by gallons used, or percentage of residential users by gallons used, percentage of commercial accounts by meter size, percentage of commercial accounts by gallons used, and percentage of accounts by water meter size. So they were able to take and do a really deep dive into our data to determine what our customer profiles were, what type of increases, whether that be in the base fee or in the consumption fees, would generate the revenue that we would need to be self-sustaining, to cover our debt service, to cover the new IGA agreements with both Carroll and Douglas County, and again, to keep the water and sewer fund healthy. They came up with 3 different options. Option 1 was a 20% increase in the water and sewer base fee and a 12% increase in the water and sewer consumption charge. Option 2 was no increase in the water and sewer base fee and a 20% increase in water and consumption charge. And then option 3 was 15% in both the water and sewer base fee as well as in the water and sewer consumption charge. After looking at all the options and seeing what the impact, what that would be, staff recommendation is to go with option 2, which again is no increase in the water and sewer base fee, but a 20% increase in the water and sewer consumption charge. And we feel like this would maintain the water and sewer fund and maintain its healthy fund balance, maintain being able to meet our debt service coverage ratios and requirements, as well as continue supporting the water conservation efforts. So we also, in addition to looking at the water and sewer base fees and consumption charges, they looked at our rate schedule or tier structure, and it was very complex. And there was really they didn't really see any advantages or really disadvantages other than it was just very complex. They didn't really see any advantages of having all the different tiers by meter size. So they also looked into simplifying it, to making it easier to implement, easier to understand for going forward. So not only are we asking for authorization for y'all to approve option 2, it would also be authorization to adopt or approve the simplified water and sewer tier structure that they presented as well. So that's the summary of the water and sewer rate structure.
Yes, Councilman McCoy.
So, okay, I'm going to be so mean, but that was the most boring presentation ever. Like,
sorry.
You weren't here to answer questions either, which made it 10 times worse, because you do a good job of explaining it in layman's terms and everything. But anyway, I'm sorry to the people who presented. But so if I'm looking at this cover sheet right, is that option 3 is basically a 15% increase over everything. It doesn't matter if you use 1,000 gallons or you use 1,000,000. Okay, so option 2 is a 20% increase based on your consumption. Okay, And can you explain one a little bit in like just a few sentences?
Yes, it would be increasing the base fee by 20%. So each water and sewer have a base fee. It's just a fixed cost. That's not based on any consumption. That is what you pay on your bill, regardless if you use 1 gallon or 1,000,000 gallons. And then the consumption charge, water and sewer consumption, sewer is based on the water consumption. So those both would have a 12% increase based on the tier structure, the simplified tier structure that they presented.
Okay, and that was going to be my other question. So I'm glad you said something tonight about it being simplified, because when they were talking about the meters and everything, in my mind, I'm thinking a gallon's a gallon. Whether your meter pushes out 1,000 gallons or 10, a gallon is if we're billing by gallons, a gallon is a gallon. Somebody's just getting them a lot faster than the other person.
Yes.
Okay, so I wondered what was the point of the different meters and stuff. So I'm glad to hear that.
Just always been that way. So
Okay. Okay, so I'm glad to hear that a simplification is in order. Yep.
I know when I got on council, I voted against water rate increases because I thought everybody has to have water. We certainly don't want to just, raise up. You have to have water, right? It wasn't until I think a city manager exposed how critical our infrastructure was, and that it hadn't been caught up, and that we use the example of a candy bar. Remember that, y'all?
Yes.
That we were selling the candy bar for less than it took to make it, and what was happening. And the only reason I'm saying this is I want you to understand when a decision is made here, kind of the background behind it. We were taking the money to make up because we're selling it for less than it took to create it, and it's supposed to operate like a business and be self-sustaining. So the city was having to rob the general fund that's used for everything else to supplement that water and sewer category, and there was no extra money for repair, for future building expansion that we needed. So it finally became clear to us that we can't do this. We have to fix what's in the ground, and we have to have enough left over. It's kind of like on your house. You can pay just the mortgage, but if you never fix the roof and you never fix anything else, you're going to have a problem with your house. So we had to not only pay the mortgage, what it cost in a sense to produce it, we had to have the money for the repairs and for the future expansion. And that's when it kind of changed the mindset. What has made the difference this year and what we're doing, we've been trying to bring it up just a little bit every year, right, y'all? We're trying to make it so for all of us, it wouldn't be too painful. Raise it a little bit at a time. But now we have contracts coming, or I should say intergovernmental agreements, and our water cost from Carroll County is going to double because they were giving us such a super deal for so many years that eventually, I guess they'd say they brought it up to market, and with Douglas County. And so in order to pay for what it's going to cost us to do that and produce our own water, we've got to do this. And I'll just say lastly, the one thing I like about at least the one that's not the base. When you put it on the base, you pay it and you have no control. Everybody pays it. If it's based on consumption, I can control some of that. I can save water. I can have my rain barrels. We can do things to cut down on our cost. Don't let your kids take a shower for a week, whatever it is. You may not want to do that one, but just some levity. But you have some control, Just like my mom said, brush your teeth, turn the water off while you're doing this and turn it back on,
And I believe, too, we looked at what the base fee for the Carroll County water and the Douglas County, and I believe we were right in line with the same amount. So we didn't feel like, even though the base really hasn't been increased in several years, we've only talked about the volume increase over, I know since I've been here, 5% every year. I was actually surprised that our base fee was very comparable to our surrounding entities, mostly the ones that we actually buy water from. So,
any other questions or comments from council? Yes, Ms. McCoy. I mean,
But
Councilman
You're fine.
McCoy.
You're fine. You call me Anna. It won't bother me. I lost my train of thought. What I was going to say was, so if we go with option 2, okay, never mind. I take that back. I was going to say it's a 20% increase based on consumption, but if a gallon is a gallon and you decide to go down from 1,000 gallons to 900 gallons to conserve, then you can control consumption no matter what the tier is.
Correct.
Okay, that was my point.
So I'm just curious because the math doesn't exactly math. I mean, like, we've got a 15% increase on the base fee for option number 3, and then an increase of water and sewer consumption is 15%. Can you explain? Because then you're looking at, like, with option number 2, it's 0% on the base fee, and then it's 20% for the consumption. So it's only a 20% increase versus option number 3, it's 15 and 15. Am I asking that where?
During the presentation last week, I
wasn't there, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Where they got to with the numbers was basically showing where we'll be in the future. They trended back 5 years and went forward 3 years, and kind of, because it is hard when you're looking at base and consumption, it is a choice as to how much consumption you have, so it's hard to show what everybody's bill would be impacted. So they did kind of go and just show for the total water and sewer fund what that would look like in year 1, year 2, year 3. So it's not an answer, but it's the best answer I know to show, because you're right, it's not just an across the board, this is the increase. We tried to look at it as what will our revenue, what will our balance look like in year 1, year 2, year 3.
Okay.
And in that presentation, I think option 2. And they trended everything with consumption based on the full 12 months of data that we gave them. So if it's a drought year, if there's other conditions that go on, it could change.
But all 3 options would make it so that we weren't selling the candy bar.
Yes, correct.
They all came out relatively the same as far as.
Several years down the road.
Okay.
So all 3 showed a negative by the 3rd year based on our growth projections, because we are going to be purchasing potentially at that point well into, that halfway mark of we're making exactly how much as we're also purchasing. So all 3 did kind of have a similar outcome as she mentioned. So basically what they're saying, and you really can't go further out than a year or 2 when you're talking about consumption.
If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I have a motion. I move to authorize the simplified water sewer tier structure as presented, and to authorize option 2 as a water sewer rate increase as presented by Carter Sleuth, effective March the 1st, 2025.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item A3, Board of Ethics appointments.
I'd like to move to table this to the March meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
So okay. Can I just ask a question before either way?
Yeah, no. We have a motion. Go ahead, discussion.
Okay.
We have a second.
So my question as far as an ethics board, I guess my concern is the benefit to the citizens and to the city as a whole. My concern is simply because, I mean, if your ethics complaint is against the elected body, it's the elected body who have appointed these folks. Now, my understanding is that that's what's in our ordinance, or is it the charter? I mean, either way. What options would the council have for making changes to that?
Yeah. And I addressed a little bit of this at the work session. Is this on?
Mhm.
Okay. So our current ethics ordinance is based on a Georgia Municipal Association model ordinance. So in 1999, Georgia Municipal Association developed a City of Ethics program. And to be recognized as a city of ethics, you had to adopt an ethics ordinance, and they came out with a model ordinance. And cities all across the state adopted it, including Villa Rica. So what we have on our books now in our ordinance is that ordinance. There's different options. You don't. So my advice to this council is, we've got a law. An ordinance is a law. So my advice is follow the law. And there's been criticism out there, I haven't heard it here, but I've heard it, that council is stacking the deck in a, you're picking your own jurors. But if you select the board members the way that I've written up, you're following the law. A law that was adopted long before this board was impaneled. I mean, before y'all ran for this current board. I mean, it's been on the books for a long time. So I can't advise you to not follow the law. Now, if y'all want to change it, that's fine. And I think it should be. I don't like the law, but the fact that I don't like it, I can't advise you to not follow it. Correct. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And I understand, but that's why I'm asking. I mean, laws can be changed.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking what options.
The problem is we've received a complaint, and you have to follow the law that's in place at the time that happened. So we got to deal with what we've got. I'm not going to advise someone to withdraw their complaint. So we got to deal with it. And the law, our ordinance says how we deal with it. Whether that will give the public any confidence that their complaints were taken seriously, I don't think so. But that's what the ordinance says.
And that's my concern. And I understand, the law is what we're here to make sure that we're following. I understand that. I just.
And there's nothing that prevents someone from the public from taking other avenues of relief. If they feel like a law's been broken, there's all kind of avenues to take with that, and not going through our ethics ordinance.
But what exactly I feel like citizens don't have the know-how of where to go and what to do, as far as the steps of filing an ethics complaint. And if they're not going to feel confident in this ethics board, then they need to know what options are available to them. I don't know if we have I don't know if it would be a good option to have some sort of tab on the city's website where there's a detailed list of exactly what your options are, what options are available. And by no means, let me be clear, because you did make a comment that you didn't want to, or that you weren't going to advise anybody to withdraw their ethics complaint. By no means am I suggesting such. Right. I mean, anyone has that right to file that complaint. That is not why that has nothing to do with my comments currently. My comments right now are simply the concern that citizens need to feel heard, and they need to feel like their concerns are being properly addressed.
Yeah, and I don't know that this ordinance, and most of the ones I've read, are going to give citizens that confidence, if that makes sense. if ethics boards don't have the authority to remove people from office, they don't have authority to punish people. They make recommendations. The elected body is the ones that makes decisions. So, I don't know that there's a good ethics ordinance out there. But, if we get an ethics complaint right now, we have to follow, one, our ordinance says what ethics rules have to be followed, defines what those ethics are. And so it has to be within those for this board to have any jurisdiction in the first place. And then it sets forth what they're to do if they find an ethics complaint, which is going to be to make a referral back to this body to take action on it.
So at this point, this is the law, so we follow according to what's on the books right now. But at one of our work days, we could go ahead and go through this and decide if we want to change that ordinance, not have the ethics board that way. And I know we were going to table this discussion. I don't know what happened in some of the other counties where some things came up. It kind of went all the way to the governor. And I've commented how I feel about this on on social media, and anyone that's asked me. I don't like the way this is set up, but it was set up decades ago, and it's what we've been handed, and it's what's on the books. And until somebody changes it, until we change it, this is what we go by. I don't like it, but it's what's there. And I've talked to the city attorney about it and asked, can we defer to some independent group? And it used to exist at the state level, but could we defer to an independent group up there that looks into these things? But I guess at this point, if it doesn't exist, that ethics board on a state level, that still will deal with counties or municipalities, would then people just, they would go I would imagine, the district attorney or something like that.
Well, I don't think the district attorney will deal with ethics issues. They will deal with legal issues.
Well, legal, so
violated the law.
fraud, or in a particular case, it was called, they believe there was bid fixing.
Right.
So what does that qualify as if there was bid fixing?
Well, if they violated a state statute, that could be a criminal action. So
there's really a lot of state already laws in place to deal with violation, right?
The state ethics board they've changed their name.
Yeah.
And they deal with campaign finance issues, not what you would talk about our code of ethics. Like, they wouldn't deal with that.
Okay.
Right, but there's certain things in law as to conflict of interest and everything else that are still against state laws.
Question. Kevin, you asked that this be tabled to the next meeting. Why did you ask for this to be tabled?
I didn't ask for it to be tabled.
It was me, and I'll explain. I asked for it to be tabled because as it is written right now, council picks, mayor picks, and then mayor picks and council approves. Well, in my thought process is too, also we can't have a quorum. So I can't pull Danny and Stephanie aside, or Stephanie can't pull me and Danny aside without it being a public meeting. So we got to go individually and do this. And furthermore, also because public comment was tonight, I do think the council should take this seriously, and we find somebody that represents us as a whole. And honestly, when you call people and say, hey, you want to be on an ethics board, you get a lot of no's. So you get a lot of no's. So that is why I wanted to table it, because I wanted to be more thoughtful with the selection. So that was my thought process.
Well, I understand the tabling because actually we haven't even agreed upon the council appointment, so we haven't even talked about it yet.
We haven't.
So I can see why we're not ready to make appointments.
No, I think the mayor's ready to present some names, I think.
Yeah, because as you stated, we have to comply. And the only way to comply is do what the law says right now, And so I complied.
Agreed, but you only make a decision for you. You don't have to talk to the five of us. If I only had to make a
Right.
decision with myself, that's a whole
I
lot
only had to
easier
agree
do.
with myself.
Yes, that was my point,
That's right.
Leslie.
Yeah.
Council's gonna have to make a motion to appoint someone, and there'll have to be a majority vote.
Yes.
And we haven't discussed it yet, so we don't have one name to appoint, or make a motion to appoint. So I can see why it needs to be tabled. Give us time to come up with somebody.
Yeah, I think your options are, you could table it, you could go ahead and make 2 appointments.
I would,
Those are your two.
I would
But you don't
prefer-
have a you don't have a board unless you have all 3 appointments, is that correct?
You don't have a full board.
Can 2 people,
There's no guidance.
okay.
So who is guiding this board? Like, we make our appointments. Who's guiding this board?
The board can make their own rules and procedures.
This was.
How is this an
Just
ethics
like-
board,
just like-
Kevin?
This came from the Georgia Municipal Association in 1993, and it was adopted. Obviously, we need to change it, but we can't change it tonight.
Correct. Understand, but we can table it tonight.
So we have a motion and a second to table.
Any more discussion?
No.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Unanimous for tabling.
Right. Item number A4, resolution enacting a moratorium for 180 days on new construction. Attorney Drummond.
Okay, we had a good bit of discussion about this at the work session. So I was asked by staff to prepare a moratorium for 6 months for new construction, basically so we could get answers from the state about what we could do as far as expansion of our sewer capacity, both conveyance and treatment. When you get into engineering questions, I'm going to have to ask Mr. Bain to step up here, but the light's on, but it doesn't sound like it's working to me.
But his light is on.
And I'm right up on it, so.
Okay.
All right. Do y'all have any questions for me, or should I get someone that can actually answer questions up here?
That's right.
You wanna come up? Some questions that have been asked to me outside of this forum have been, would it apply to projects that are already in the works? It would not. If someone has had a project already approved, or if it's a project that would actually help the problems that we're facing, those would not be subject to the moratorium.
But I think, and Kevin, you might be able to answer this, and if not, but I think our concern is this is going to stifle any commercial development that we have.
It would stifle all new development that's not been approved.
I get that, but nobody's clamoring for more housing. Nobody is sitting out there is clamoring for us to have more subdivisions and more apartments or anything like that, any more residential. But there is a voice out there that would like more commercial, and also with the TAD going, because I believe there was a complaint that there was not a lot of development yet, and so this would stop that. Wouldn't it stop that development?
No.
Actually, there's some leeway in this resolution that allows us to take up exempt special cases.
That is also true.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think back in the budget season, there was concern that there was a shortfall with the TAD amount. And so I think, my concern was, well, if we're putting in a moratorium on development, then we're not helping that shortfall issue.
When we presented it, we actually tried to present it as the problem is 2 issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need the growth to come because we need to be able to make the TAD payment.
Mm-hmm.
If the growth comes, we're going to have a capacity issue. We tried to present that in at least some finance committee meetings as a combined challenge that we're facing, and we tried to get ahead of it early, so that not that we wouldn't get to this space. We had a feeling we might get to this place, but as we monitor and as we continue to wait for the EPD, the concern is every week we get people coming in wanting to have the conversation about development. every week. If we do not take action at this level, we have to let them in, we have to let them build, we have to give capacity letters that John would ultimately be asked to sign that he does not have the confidence in right now based on the numbers that we are tracking now, knowing what's already on the books, approved without EPD saying, yes, you can expand at the west plant. Yes, we'll allow you to expand up to 0.85 at the north plant. And oh, yes, these are some options for your waste load allocation. Until we get that answer, right now we are facing some major challenges and we are looking into 2027. This isn't a tomorrow problem, but we want to let you guys know now, if we do not get a solution, this is a major 2027 problem with what we have approved today.
So at the work session, though, I did discuss about possibly not including commercial. Has staff had an opportunity to maybe do an analysis of what the impact would be if we limited this resolution or this moratorium to residential only?
See, I see that more of a legal question. Because I don't know how you could, if the purpose of the moratorium is for sewer capacity and to allow time for EPD to answer our questions regarding expansion and waste load allocation, I don't know how limiting it to one type of new construction would resolve it and protect us.
My question's going to be more for John. It's, I guess, what is the impact with the residential versus the commercial?
Good evening. Well, looking at the numbers initially, the majority is on the residential side. All the residential developments that have been approved to date play a larger factor than the commercial side. However, I guess how I've been looking at it in general, though, is what's that total number? Residential and commercial combined is what's coming through the conveyance system and to the treatment facilities. And it's that total number that's alarming to me, not just the residential, just the commercial. It's the cumulative effect of everything that's been approved to date. That's where we're going to have a major issue in the next couple of years if we don't find some solutions sooner rather than later. So how we've looked at it, how I've looked at it at least, is we want to pause on new applications coming in until we have a better understanding of where we can get to and how quickly we can get there. And once we have that answer, then we can start looking again. But looking at commercial and residential combined is how I've been looking at it, and the impact on the conveyance system, which includes the lift stations and then, of course, both wastewater treatment facilities. So the impact of what's been approved on both of those treatment facilities is what we're working on a solution for.
But isn't the residential a much higher effect?
Yes, it is a higher effect, correct.
I would think the commercial would be a small number compared to residential.
Well, it depends on the commercial, though. I mean, when we talked about the rate study in the work session, if I recall, the commercial use was so varied that we just looked at some standard numbers for a commercial, if I'm saying that right. Because one commercial facility may not use, just a small amount of water each day, but we may have another commercial user that uses a tremendous amount of water every day. So it's rather, and I think to Dan's point as well, I don't know how, I'm not sure, at least I'm not sure, probably a better question for Kevin, is how we can say yes to some and no to the other. But to me, it's just a function of saying yes to any new applications at this point is alarming to me because of where we are today. Whether it's a small user or a big user, it's once you get to that 100%, it's still over the 100%. Whether we're 104% over, 105 or 106, once we're there, we're there. Do you know what I mean? That's really how I've looked at it. Is once, based on where we're at the books, we're there at both treatment plants. So we're trying to find a solution as quickly as we can to have a resolution before we get to 2027 and on.
With all due respect, we've had a moratorium in place on residential for how long now?
Last June.
Okay, so
Multifamily
we're
residential.
at what, 9-10 months now?
Seven.
So what will another 6 months do? Because I mean, again, with all due respect, you've had since last June to figure out what exactly we're gonna do with the capacity issues. So what will 6 more months do other than we're turning away new businesses that residents have been begging for?
Right.
Well,
We are so heavy on residential,
Right.
and we have to balance out at some point with some commercial. But now we're going to detour residential business owners of coming into Villa Rica to build. My question is, what will 6 months do?
And then if I can ask also, I mean, to that point that we've already have an existing moratorium on multifamily in apartments or multifamily in townhomes, but now we're hearing that we can distinguish it then with regard to that moratorium, but on this moratorium we can't distinguish between the multifamily, single family, and that's a little.
I understand. I think we can distinguish, and we do know what the impact of the residential and the commercial is on our conveyance system and our treatment plants. We did enact a residential moratorium last June, as we said, but that hasn't stopped. That hasn't stopped any of the commercial growth from then until now either. And now we're at a point to where even with the commercial and residential combined, we are going to be at capacity at the treatment facilities based on what has already been approved.
What
And I
will
don't
6
know.
months do?
Well, our expectation is in 6 months, we will have a better understanding of what our options are for expansion.
And that's
Right now, we do not have
because-
those answers from the state.
That's because, and this goes to that question, you feel like by then, we will have those answers from EPA.
we
You
feel
feel
like-
confident.
I'm well enough confident that our expectation.
EPA.
Yes, we're looking for answers from the state level. I think we talked about that last week. We're looking at that. We're looking for answers from the state level. We were told at the end of this previous year, at the end of 24, we should have an answer in 6 months or so. But that just lays out a roadmap, if you will, of how we can resolve the capacity issue. That doesn't fix the capacity issue. We don't expect that we're not going to get a letter in 6 months stating that, okay, you can expand, you're ready to go. But what it will do is it'll tell us what our options are for expansion and where we can discharge that to, because that's really the critical factor, is where we can discharge. So our expectation is that we have a better understanding in 6 months of how long it's going to take us and how much funding we'll need to get to increase capacity. That's what we're looking for in the next 6 months.
So, John, if somebody's already been approved, but they haven't done anything, would the moratorium stop them, or you still got to let them do what they doing?
If
and
it's
we stop
been-
any kind of new stuff?
Yeah, this is relative to new applications that would come in from this point forward. Anything that's came in and been approved is already under work. Right, we're not.
But
right.
this is for
Even if they have not even started billing or anything, you still can't.
Yes, I think so. I think there's a little bit of a question as to when that happened and how aged is the sewer capacity letter that was provided to that potential development. There are, and I think there's some language in this moratorium that speaks to that, if I recall, where someone could come back and, state that they were approved quite a long time ago, but they took no action then. So that's something that would be worked out on really, can I say, a case-by-case basis, I would say, from a legal standpoint. We would check to see if they have vested rights to develop. If they don't have vested rights, then they wouldn't qualify. But if they have vested rights to develop, then they would. So, and it also doesn't include businesses that leave and new ones come into that same facility. This is relative to new applications for new developments that come in that haven't yet been approved.
John, if someone, I guess to kind of clarify Ms. Shirley's question, if somebody has already been approved for zoning, but they have not applied for any permits from the city yet, would this moratorium apply to them?
If they've only applied for zoning and nothing else.
And they've been approved for zoning.
They could file for an exemption, but it wouldn't automatically exempt them.
Okay, that's what.
And that's what I think Danny had mentioned earlier, Councilman Carter had said. There's a
Right.
process that we included for that, where they can make their case to council. We wouldn't go back to planning and zoning. They would make their case to council.
If they've applied for a land disturbance permit already,
That's correct, yeah. Then they're in.
moratorium doesn't apply.
We've got them on our list.
Right. So when John's saying approval or apply, he's not referring necessarily to zoning applications for the council. He's referring to a permit application at staff level. Is that fair, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's how I interpret it, was when they
Right.
come in for a pre-submittal meeting and we meet and talk and they roll out what their project is.
Right.
An important distinction to remember is when I brought forth, and I was very happy that everybody ended up being on board with it, to put a moratorium on multifamily housing, it just seemed to be obvious between our eyes that we had to slow down. That's the reason we did that, not because we knew things were critical. We did that because we knew we needed to slow down. We were growing too quickly, and especially in the area of multifamily housing, the demand, the density, more people in a small area. The critical difference was July. July was a changing point. Jeff came in, you came in, y'all looked at this, and it came to light that we had a critical situation to deal with. And that's what made the difference in where we are now, is basically what y'all uncovered once you arrived here in Villa Rica in your positions. Yes, ma'am. Councilman, I'm sorry. Warmoth, been 2 hours already. Go.
Is there any option to slow commercial instead of stopping commercial completely? I'm just having a hard time with turning away businesses that the city really needs.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I think I think there's always an option for that. I am, to clarify, I'm looking at it from strictly a capacity standpoint at the 2 wastewater treatment facilities, right? So I'm looking at the numbers. I know where we're going to be next year. I know we're going to be the year after that, and I know we're going to be the year after that. So I guess the question is, is a level of risk there, right? It's how much risk do we want to take?
But we're taking a risk by saying no commercial at all. Regardless of which way we go, there's going to be a risk.
Agreed,
Yeah,
agreed. Agreed. I don't disagree with that.
Would you be completely opposed to some sort of solution to slow down the commercial growth?
We're going to get in a legal issue soon here.
Oh,
and I'll tell you why. No, it's, this is why. We may want certain things, but if we say yes to commercial, it doesn't matter what the commercial is. So I can't sit there and go, well, I'll take that Longhorn, but I'm not taking you over there that want to build. That's what we're going to run
But
into,
if
is
the-
how do we pick and,
But
we
if
can't
the
pick and
issue,
choose.
if the issue is a capacity issue, then if we have a business that comes in or wants to come in that doesn't use a lot of water, then that wouldn't be a legal issue. If we're turning away businesses that use too much, and that's the issue, then I don't see why that would be a legal issue, because we're turning away exactly what the I don't want to say problem, that's not the right word, but we're turning away the reasoning for needing this moratorium.
So what you would say is the real estate office can open because you don't lose much water, but the restaurant can't because you guys use a lot more water. Do you know what I'm saying, where I think it kind of puts us in a weird
But isn't that
predicament?
exactly what we did with the residential moratorium?
I don't think it's a water issue, it's a sewer issue.
Well,
But it
was a
doesn't matter if it's
same
water or
difference.
sewer, it's still a capacity issue.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I mean, we put the moratorium on residential and we did the residential for multifamily. So is that not the same concept
Because of
as?
the density of it.
But that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, the
same-
density of
but
the
it's still just-
commercial.
But
Right,
it applied
yeah.
to all of them. You know what I'm saying?
But it doesn't apply to single-family residential. I think that's what we're saying, is that there's a distinction there. If the argument that I think Diana and Kevin were making was that we can't carve out certain types of uses in this moratorium, well, we have an existing moratorium where we've already carved out certain types of uses, which means, in some view, that moratorium would be inappropriate or improper already. So, I mean, because we've carved out, we can't do, you can do a single-family subdivision underneath our current moratorium. You can do commercial underneath our current moratorium for zoning. But, so we're asking Kevin and Diana, can we just do a residential moratorium only for new construction instead of the commercial? Or if there's some sort of metric, I guess John could probably come up with and say, if the estimated use of the capacity is a certain level, maybe you base it off square feet, maybe you base it off flow, et cetera, then so maybe a large industrial project that would add a lot of capacity would have to be on pause. I don't know about going that far with it, but perhaps.
I don't think we can get into the position of judging what businesses would be beneficial to the city. I think if we got into
The problem, though, Kevin, with that is that there actually is an exemption in the proposed resolution that says almost exactly that.
if they're providing something that solves the problem. I mean, if
Sure.
they're going to put in a lift station or a new system that helps us, that's different. They're taking some of the burden away from the city to help solve the problem. But I don't think we could get in the business saying, well, we like O'Charlie's and we don't like.
Right. Well, you don't base it upon that, but you base it upon what their proposed capacity would be.
I think you could say we're not going to allow any projects that use more than 10,000 gallons a month.
Right.
Something to
Yeah,
that
that's
effect.
that's
But
exactly what we're talking about.
What I'm hearing from the engineers is we have no capacity. So that's the problem. One thing I've asked them to look at is.
But we don't have. I mean, we have capacity now as we speak. We project the capacity issue to happen when.
Well, we have one problem is there are capacity letters that have been issued for a number of projects already. We don't know if any of those projects are still viable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing we need some time to look at. If we don't want somebody that got a capacity letter 5 years ago that's never going to go online to hold up somebody that's willing to break ground right now. But I don't know that we have that answer right now, though. This buys us time. I mean, we can carve out exceptions. I think exempting everything from a legal standpoint is easier to defend.
Let me point out for Matt's, section 3 of this resolution has exemptions. Any person can file for an exemption from this, so we actually have the capability of approving something that would not use up a lot of the utilities that we're trying to preserve. And that exemption, all they have to do is follow the procedure and file for an exemption, and it'll come to the council. So we do have an option in here for an exemption.
I understand that. I guess my concern, though, is that if you are a commercial business looking to open in the city and you read the headline, "City enters in moratorium," you're going to probably say, you know what, I'm going to move on to the next city. I'm never going to go look at the moratorium and get down to the fine print, hire a lawyer or hire an engineer to say, well, does this apply to me? No, you're going to say, they have a moratorium in place. We're going to move on. And before you spend a bunch of money trying to find out whether you're an exemption, you're going to move on to the next project down the street. And that's my concern.
Absolutely. I agree completely with that.
It's like you'll go to Rockmart.
Right.
And it's not so much about a business that we think will benefit the city. It's not that. It's about the capacity issues that we have. And if we've got one business that's going to use a lot more than another, it doesn't make sense that we would be turning away one that we have the ability to offer them what they need.
Too many of those.
Yep.
Problem is, if there's a lot of those that have use a
10
little,
small
and you
ones might be
turn,
the same as one big one. You just
and you approve one of them, the others are gonna,
Okay, well, if you're gonna allow an exception, on one but not another, it's the exact situation
Right.
that you're talking
right,
about.
it's built into the resolution. So
I
once we pass this, we have that capability.
I think part of the exception might be, my understanding, because I looked for this, is somebody who actually has a vested right, maybe to move ahead because, what do you call it? When they've actually already spent money preparing that property. What is that called? Vested,
vested
vested
rights.
rights? Vested rights, that there's a little wiggle room built in. I was looking for that because we know there are some that have done that. Maybe they've already put in utilities
Right.
or cleared the land. And so I guess y'all wanted to build in some wiggle room. And I was looking for that because I was afraid there might be people who actually had spent money and then it would be like shutting them down.
Can I add to that point really quickly too? Is that this doesn't in any way apply to any renovation or any vacant building that's available. So if there was a restaurant or a business type that wanted to look at the public shopping center or downtown space, this would in no way limit the capability of their coming to Villa Rica.
Right. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes, Councilwoman McCoy.
Okay, but with that being said, kind of piggybacking on to what Matthew said, are they going to get into the nuances of, oh, this doesn't apply to this empty shopping center and this doesn't apply to this vacant building? Or are they're more likely to be like, move on. And that's what and I think that's what our big concern is. I know I understand capacity is an issue, and I understand Villa Rica before most of us got on council, that Villa Rica has a habit of their eyes are too big for their stomach when it comes to infrastructure. but now we are trying, we have the people, like the people are here. We need to provide something that's going to provide some kind of a tax base, because look at the HB, that's lowering our income, and there's not going to be a flossed. I think I got that right. There's not going to be a floss. So as you were saying, it's one capacity versus another. This is eventually going to get into a financial issue. But with that being said, also, if we are at capacity, are we getting some kind of fines?
I think to kind of piggyback off what the mayor mentioned is that the difference between those two scenarios that we're discussing is that, sure, someone with vested rights is going to probably take that extra step and see, am I eligible for an exemption? But the kind of scenario that we're concerned about is that someone who is just kind of, on loop.net looking for available commercial properties, or just has a general APB out to their realtor, I'm looking for a commercial property, they're not going to spend that extra 5 to 10, 15 minutes maybe to investigate, oh, do they have an exemption? Do I apply for it? They're not going to hire the lawyer, engineer. They're going to just go on to the next project. So.
So ultimately, the governing body is going to decide this. We're going to listen to staff. The decision will reside up here. We hire a city manager for a reason, to manage all this. I would like to ask your professional advice on the situation we're in and what your opinion is, because I can't discount any of these things. It's true, I have some of the same concerns. Darn, there's things we want to have here that people want to have for quality of life, and they might very well move on. But at the same time, and I've done this to other city managers, would you give me your professional opinion on how you see it?
My opinion is 6 months is a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of growth of a city. It does give us the time for EPD to say what we can do, and that is a huge deal, because it's not just a matter of you can only do this. We presented a palette of options to look at for the future. It wasn't just, can we do this? It was, how much can we grow? Where can we move that waste load allocation? It gives us the guidance and the answers that we need to know how we can grow. And then we can come back at that time and discuss those options with council and say, this is our next step. This is how long it's going to take. This is when we can get there. And I think the reason why John's presentation was so good last week is he went through that. This is what 2025 looks like. This is what 2026 looks like. This is what 2027 looks like. It's going to take, a year to finish this design. It's going to take 2 years to do this actual capital construction so that we can marry those dates up. But based on everything that's on the books right now, if we do not get this approval, we're already in trouble.
Thank you. Not an easy place to be, right? Any other questions for either Attorney Drummond, staff, or city manager?
I do have a quick question. So I saw you had a list there. How many are, of your list, how many are, and what is that a list of, first of all?
We have a list of all development projects. This is something that was born out of joint committee, and it was designed originally for students. But we kind of took that model and did it based on development and added water and sewer capacity. We had other information about Ward and kind of mapped out what was coming and when it was coming. And it's all of the development projects coming in the city. It's residential on top, commercial on bottom. And as you'll
So
know.
how many projects are on there total? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, I just didn't want you to keep.
$69.
Okay, how many are, roughly, how many are commercial, how many are residential?
And then, of course, it would depend on the density, the size, how many.
26 commercial.
26 commercial, I'm trying to do the math in my head, so about
43.
40-something are residential. So we would be taking about, I don't know the percentage, I left my
About
phone in my
2/3.
car. But that's the majority. That's the majority of what we would be halting. Is residential, if we halted residential.
If you're
it
saying
followed this
projecting
trend.
out, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, if it followed this trend, these are
Then yes.
projects already approved.
Yeah, this would, none of these stop.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yes, if you were to take statistically what's come in and trended it out, it would be more residential.
It'd be like about 65%.
Kevin, how long do you think it'll take you to get an inventory of the capacity letters that are out there?
I'd have to ask staff. I really don't know.
Some of these projects have been on the books for a while. I don't have capacity letters for all of these.
Mhm.
These are the ones that we know are approved and we awarded capacity to.
Okay.
So, to my understanding, this would be the list. I don't know if there are any other capacity letters out there that I'm not aware of yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that this is the list that I had been working off of. So-
Okay. So,
We just don't know how many on this list are still viable projects.
I mean, how long do you think it'll take to figure that out? I mean, what's the plan to determine whether it's a viable project? I guess you're going to send them a notice and give them so many days to respond and then revoke the capacity letter?
Well, the capacity letters themselves don't have an expiration date, I don't think. The older ones
Yeah, the older ones don't.
I think anything we're issuing now would have an expiration date on it. So I think we do need to touch base with these developers to see where they are they going forward or not. But we have to assume they are until we know they're not.
Well, currently though, our ordinance doesn't put a timeline, so I mean, on what that, so would
Yeah,
we need to
our-
also change the ordinance?
Our
and
ordinance
then-
does have a timeline.
Okay.
It's just not reflected in those older letters.
Okay.
Well, how long do you think it would, I'm sorry, how long do you think it would take to get this information?
Yeah.
Like, give us some concrete information so that, I know we're talking about the EPD and that's one issue, but to make sure that the capacity letters y'all know of is all of them. There's not some floating around. How long would it take to get that information?
I think we're comfortable this is the list, right?
That's the list as we understand it today.
And so how long would it take to follow up and make sure that or ask them for a timeline maybe, is the question I'm asking? Because maybe somebody's not looking to do anything till 2028. They're just holding on to the permit just in case.
Yeah.
If I may, I believe we're reaching out to a couple of the people on these lists, but the majority of this is in some form of review process,
Okay.
plan review or construction already.
And what's the
These
oldest
are all in
permit on there?
process.
I do not have dates.
Okay.
We have, on a bigger version of this, we have dates as to when the last action was taken and when we think build-out's coming and number of, but this is an abbreviated
Okay.
version of that, but I don't have the original date on this list.
Okay. Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
I usually don't get calls when things are going good. So I don't always know. I can drive by properties that I know we've discussed here and I see no activity, but I wouldn't know beyond that.
And you could have one that looks good and their investors pull out.
Right.
I mean, it's just, some of it's just absolutely unpredictable. Yes, Councilman McCoy, Warmouth, sorry, wrong hand.
So you had mentioned that this would not impact any buildings that are already in existence. So even if they're vacant,
Correct.
but answer me this. So if it's vacant, it wouldn't cause any stress to infrastructure, correct?
I think the buildings that have already been approved are in your calculations for the
Right,
tree,
they're already
right?
part of the calculations. The existing kind of infrastructure is already baked in basically into their numbers.
But they're not using.
Yeah.
But they can, yeah, someone can buy the property, move in,
Yeah.
and we know nothing about it.
So when they say there's 104% capacity, they're talking about basically numbers that they're saying is like, they're not saying that's the day-to-day 104%. I mean, but it's basically saying, well, if we had to turn every faucet on or flush every toilet, we would be at 104, basically.
So it's
Is that
just
fair,
already
John?
calculated.
If I can, to answer that question, when this list that's currently in some form of review and construction is built out, we will be at 104% capacity.
Right. I think what I understand Councilwoman Warmer's question, I apologize, but is that, so for example, the olive tree closes up shop today and they're vacant for a month. And then, the fig tree moves in instead.
Yes.
Do
We have been granting approvals to all of those projects. The olive tree, the public's moved over. Now we have a new facility coming in. If we have a new facility coming there, we're just assuming.
Right. I think he's talking about maybe I didn't necessarily mean, I know Olive Tree has an active thing going on. I'm talking about just a general, my office, I close up and I say, I'm going to not practice law anymore. I'm gone for 60 days. And then a realtor moves in. How do we account for that? Because I have an existing building in which I'm
we account for that because those numbers are being represented today.
Okay.
And so when that building closes, those numbers are going to drop off. We know we have that capacity to put someone new in that building.
Because you already
That's how
have
we're
that
handling
today,
it.
right?
Yes. That's how we're handling those. So.
I'll just ask a question from other council members over there. What's the mood on potentially doing a 30-day moratorium to give Kevin and John time to get firm numbers about the capacity letters that are out there?
I'm in line with our city manager. 6 months is a blink of an eye when you're talking about a city and you're talking about running out of capacity on the sewage plants. I think we don't want to be in that position of having to have an emergency treatment. We got to give them time to come up with an answer and figure out a way out of it.
I don't disagree that 6 months is a blink of an eye. It is a blink of an eye. I mean, I've been up on this council for 5 years, and I feel like that's been like, wow, that's fast. But I do think 6 months is a pretty significant amount of time during prime building season, prime real estate season, and, coming into our new economy and what's happening. And that's what I'm concerned about primarily. And then also, there's also the factor of 6 months, so you're going to have a backlog of projects. So even if, say, there's no projects and then we come in September, everybody's been waiting 6 months to get their projects in, and now you have a backlog, and you're going to have projects behind them. So I think 6 months could have a domino effect. It really, really could. I mean, it's a blink of an eye, but it could have a domino effect. And also, you have to also wonder, what about these employees that they're, and I think Councilwoman McCoy mentioned this to me, what about these employees whose job is to inspect new construction? What are they going to be doing for 6 months? I'm sure Diana can find, yeah, well, there's plenty of projects. for them
Pressure
to work
washing
on.
sidewalks, I don't
Yeah,
know.
no. But, all I'm saying is, though, I
That's
think
true, we got
let's
all that stuff that's coming up
30
every
or
day.
so days to give them some time to do some more, to give us some more firm numbers, and then come back and revisit this in March.
I was gonna suggest maybe 60. I was gonna suggest maybe 60, because I think the turnaround, and it might even, because my other concern is too, if EPD, doesn't come back in 6 months, we're gonna have to extend, right? And that could go another 3 months.
I will say this, that the reason why we're confident on 6 months is because we didn't send this request in January.
Right.
So we tried to, we really have tried to, at the staff level, manage like, this is kind of where we're at. Is this something you'd be willing to, kind of just, we can put you on a waiting list. The problem is legally, we can't do that without this.
Okay. So I think I'm good with 60 or 90 days.
I think it ought to be at least 90, because I don't think the EPD is going to work that fast, so.
But my thing is, though, I think if after 60 days,
How about 90?
they have the additional information,
How about 90 days? That's half of it.
90 days.
I could go for 90 days. That's cutting it in half. And it at least will come back to council where we can have this discussion again.
Hey, we look forward to that, don't we?
We always do.
But what was 90 put us?
Okay,
April?
everybody agree on 90?
Oh, no, end of May. That puts us at the end of May.
I think I'm fine with 90 if that's if that theory has momentum on that side of the
Okay.
Okay.
You ready for a
dais, then I'm
motion?
good with
Yeah,
it.
I didn't see an original motion.
I have one
but
here.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution enacting a moratorium for 90 days on the acceptance of any applications related to the development of new construction, including rezoning or permits for construction or the subdividing of property and development of subdivisions or any commercial or residential construction.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
90-day moratorium is unanimous.
Number 5, approval of January 7, 2025 work session meeting minutes.
Mayor, I did see one item on there that I would ask to be amended. For the zoning application, this is for the, I'm sorry, this is the work session? I apologize. Never mind. Mine
Never
was for the
mind.
January 14th. I apologize.
Y'all have been doing them as one,
Oh.
so if you have an issue with the council meeting
Okay.
minutes, if you want to go ahead and
approve
talk
the one
about
that
the
there
work
isn't?
session and then address the issue.
Okay, so yours
Okay.
has to do with the January 14?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, so let's go ahead and handle the January 7. Did anybody have any corrections or anything in regard to that? Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 7th, 2025 work session minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
All right. Now, number 6, approval of the January 14, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
Yes, Mayor. So the item C1 on the minutes, application RA-05-024, there was some stipulations that are not reflected in the minutes, particularly the property owner agreed to comply with the previous variances and the previous rezoning that neighboring parcels had. And I don't remember specifics on what the dates were. And there was also some staff recommendation conditions in there, I think, related to the merger of the parcels that were also, they're not reflected in the minutes. So I just wanted
Okay, so there's some recommendations or conditions by both staff and from council that
And
are
that
not
were agreed to.
reflected here. So
Yes.
we can table these and make those corrections.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion, and it needs to be tabled to a specific time, which would be the next meeting, so.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we table item 6, approval of the January 14th regular meeting minutes to the March 11th meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
All right. Item B1, Human Resources. Ms. Lanford.
Good evening. Tiffany Lamford,
Evening.
HR Director. I am presenting tonight the successful respondent to our RFQ for insurance broker services. As mentioned at the work session, we ran an RFQ for insurance broker services from November 25th, 2024 to January 13th, 2025. We received 19 total submissions, but 2 arrived after the deadline, so 17 were eligible for review. There was 4 staff members on the selection committee. We scored them, each of them, on experience and qualifications, knowledge of municipal insurance needs, competitive service offerings, references, and past experience, and cost effectiveness. On the second page of my cover sheet is the full list of all of the firms that sent in submissions, how each evaluator scored it, and then the total scores for each. The top 3, MSI Benefits Group, One Digital, and IMA, were invited in for a presentation and interview with the 4 on the selection committee. And they were asked to give us a presentation of the broker, the services that they offered, and then an interview portion between both of us. We asked them to also provide us a case study of a similar situation with a Georgia municipality where they have successfully reduced their costs while maintaining their self-insured plan. So they each successfully did that. They gave us a cost proposal that was sealed at the end of each interview, and at the end, we opened those together and evaluated each person's cost proposal. So at the end of all that, our determination came down to One Digital being the best fit for the city as our insurance broker.
Questions from council?
And this is different than we normally
Yes,
have.
Councilman McCoy.
This is different than we normally have, right? Or is this the same one?
This
we've
is a
had?
different broker. We currently have Strong Side Solutions.
Okay, I couldn't remember the name. I just wanted. All I know is Wendell. That's all I know.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, I mean, I feel like we just renewed the contract with Strongside back in the fall.
No, we renewed our insurance plans,
Okay.
not necessarily a contract with the broker.
Okay.
The way that the contract was written with Strong Side was for 2 years, and we signed that in 2023. So his contract or agreement ends at the end of this benefit year,
Which is October?
which is 9/30.
Okay. Yes, September. Okay.
Yep.
And so this is just a routine review.
Yes, we haven't really gone out to RFP that I could find in roughly 8 years. So this was just kind of to see what else is out there, and are we getting the most for our employees? Are we getting the most cost-effective services? And really, we've grown so much, and it kind of feels like Strong Side hasn't grown with us. So a lot of the burden of benefit administration has been put on HR. And these other firms have in-house advocates that are there for our employees, so they don't have to come to HR. Not saying that they can't, but so they don't have to come to HR when they have a medical question, a network question, a billing error, or any of that. We won't have to know their personal dealings with that. They can go directly to a specified advocate that can help them with that. And we don't currently have that. They have to come to us.
And so, I mean, do they, and I'm assuming that since you went through the RFQ process, then they offer the same or similar benefits?
They offer us a lot more services for less.
Okay.
It would be the fee would be less. One Digital came in at $35 per enrolled per month. We're currently paying $42.75 per enrolled per month.
But, I mean, for example, I know, there's also, there's a few prescription services that Strong Side offers. Do they offer something similar?
They do. They have, and they also have in-house pharmacists and a pharmaceutical team that work on these contracts, negotiating these things. They have a whole department that works solely on that aspect to make sure that we get the medication that we need and that our contracts are wrote appropriately for that.
So when will this kick in?
March 1st, they will start collecting our data so they can go out to market. But they won't be our official broker until 10/1.
And so will that be a 2-year type?
No, they do
agreement
not
or-
lock us in their contracts. We are open to leave if we feel like they're not
At
fulfilling.
any time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions?
So you need approval tonight because they need to start working by March 1st.
Correct. They would be doing our renewal for 10/1, so they need to start collecting everything to go out to market.
If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the selection of One Digital as the awarded insurance broker services provider and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
Any other discussion? Oh, we need a second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item C1, financial update.
Good evening.
Evening.
Going to pull up the presentation. That's okay. Okay, this is the financial update as of December 2024. We'll start with our cash. You can see that we had 48.6 million total at the end of December, with 13.7 million being general fund, 7.3 water and sewer, 442,000 sanitation and solid waste, 578,000 stormwater. Our East Side TAD bond proceeds, because we're making debt service payments, you're going to start, you're going to see that decrease after each semi-annual debt service payment. On our bond proceeds, we are paying out for the expenditures regarding the East Side TAD, being the Villa Rica Parkway and Fortune Parkway. And then you have our two old splost, our 2015 Carroll splost and our 2016 Douglas splost. We are spending that money down because we have the two new splosts of the 2021 Carroll and the 2022 Douglas. Our residential permits and taps, so far this through December, we had 82 building permits at $184,000 and 53 water and sewer taps, each at $79,500 and $212,000. Our local option sales tax is still coming in strong. Through December, we had a 4.3% increase in our Carroll County sales tax. We brought in $221,000 versus $212,000 in December of 23. And then in Douglas County side, we had 11.6% increase. We received $193,000 through December, not through December, for the month of December, and $173,000 in December of 2023. Our property tax collections through December, we collected around 70% of what we budgeted for on the Carroll side, and 87% of what was billed on the Douglas County side. So we've collected $4.5 million of the $5.9 that we budgeted, and this was, of course, just through December. And both Carroll and Douglas usually send us monthly checks. So I believe next month you'll see that we'll be in the 90 percentile or in the mid 90 percentile for both Carroll and Douglas. Here's our water and sewer fund. Again, it's a business activity. We treat it like an enterprise fund, run it like a business. Total revenue through December of this year is 3.1, and our expenses were 3.3. So we actually had a net loss of $231,000 through December. Our sanitation and solid waste, again, it's an enterprise fund business activity. Total revenue is around $450,000 with total expenses around $404,000. So we had a net income of $46,000. Last but not least, good news. It looks like, last year we had a kind of a high claim year, or rough year as we call it. But so far this year, going in the first 3 months, you can see that with the exception of October, we had a small loss in October of just under $20,000. But in November, we had savings of $109,000. In December, we had savings of $152,000. So cumulative savings are $242,000 for this plan year through December, and our bank balance is just at $1.8 million. And that is it.
That's why we became self-insured.
Yes,
So we keep that
absolutely.
money. Instead of it going off to a big insurance company, when we save on ours, we get to keep it in our bank.
Cut out the middleman.
Any questions from council? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item D1, ABL-01-25, Fast Advents Corporation doing business as Shell Food Mart. Ms. Cox.
Good evening, Whitney
Evening.
Cox, licensing specialist. This is an application for an alcoholic beverage license for Fast Events Corporation, doing business as Shell Food Mart, located at 15041 Veterans Memorial Highway. That is just past the intersection of 78 and Connors Road. Mr. Karimal Mujumdar, has applied for a license to sell beer and wine at the location. He's currently operating as a convenience store with gas pumps. However, the license was not renewed on time or prior to the deadline for renewal. So the consequence for that is that the owner must reapply for the license. The customary thing is for the licensee to be here for council and city attorney to address them. However, he did have to leave the country due to a death in his immediate family, so he's not here tonight. Just some history on him, though. He personally himself has been the licensee there since 2018. And this is the first time that I am aware of that he's, not renewed and had to go through this process again.
Ever any problem with selling to minors? Have they ever come up on that list at all that we know of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just because they're not here to get the spiel.
Right.
That, listen, the police department may be running a sting operation, and it's a really good book.
Is that a good book, Chief?
I don't blame you. The Gift of Fear. No, not that one. So have we had any sting operation problems over with this Shell station that's here at 15041 Veterans Memorial? I know we've only had a few. His renewal, we probably would have,
Right, and he did have to be fingerprinted. He had another background check run, and there was nothing that came up on his
okay.
background.
Well, we can't give him the spiel, but it at least is, it's not a renewal only because they missed the deadline. Otherwise, it'd be a renewal. Okay. All right.
Just curious. So I guess if their license lapsed and they haven't applied yet for a new one, in that time period, they can't sell alcohol, right? They don't
Correct.
get a grace period or anything?
No.
Okay.
And
if
so
they-
his license would have expired December 31, and PD, was notified, and he had to kind of cordon off his coolers
Okay.
and post notice at the business that he's not able to sell until.
Okay, so that's how that works. So the license expires, somebody tells PD, and PD says notify them, and so
Correct.
we don't have any belief that he may have sold something after that period or anything like that. That's not why that happened, right? I mean,
Right,
we
no.
found out it was just part of the routine.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
If there are any more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, public hearing. Obviously, the applicant is not here. Is there anyone that wishes to speak for or against this license? All right, that was quick. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I move to approve the alcohol license application for Fast Advents Corporation doing business as Shell Food Market, located 15041 Veterans Memorial Highway, Villarica, Georgia.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
All right, D2 TA-02-25 text amendment to modify peddlers and solicitation. And this also has a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and
Evening.
Council. Nina Shabazz, Community Development Director. Excuse me, my voice is trying to escape me. This is coming back before you because we did modify the original peddler's solicitation and canvassing permit process from December 10th. So just wanted to clarify that it was heard originally December 10th, but we did make some further revisions. The process is within the Villarica Police Department. And upon discussions with city officials, it was determined that the process, which includes an updated application, which staff has worked on and have completed, it was deemed that it should be overseen by the Community Development Department. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I did cover that part. So the application will still go to PD for their background because they still have to get their background checks done, and then the application, once it's signed off from the police department, it will come back to the Community Development Department. Then we will issue the peddler's permit if everything goes smoothly with their background check. And so staff recommends approval with or without conditions, because I know that there was some entertaining the fee, and so staff is open to any workarounds if anyone wants to add any additional language that says we want the permit to be biannual as opposed to annual the way it's written. Then that's why staff, I did write it with conditions, but that is the recommendation of staff for it to be approved.
Okay, but we've simplified it in the fact that where it can be annual and they're not having to come every time they, are selling boiled peanuts or whatever it is.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it'll be less work for y'all in a sense, and they won't have to keep coming in.
That
Okay.
is correct.
Any questions? Okay, this does require a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak for or against this item? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the modification of section 8.117 that's 117 through 120, restoration, fee, an application for permit to the zoning ordinance.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
Item 3TA-03-25, text amendment to add a new section to Article 3, heavy motor vehicles routes. This also requires a public hearing.
Right, so the purpose of this, that staff was asked to look at the use of compression brakes or Jake brakes on certain residential roads that does cause, quite a loud roaring noise. This is not something that's in our zoning ordinance, but it is in our code of ordinances, and so this is adding another section to the heavy vehicle and routes section, Article 3.
So I'm expecting that have some sort of signage where there would be maybe entries into the city. I realize on state routes, which is a lot of routes, right? 78's coming in, Dallas Highway, some sort of signage that prohibits, obviously it won't say Jake brakes, but per se compression brakes prohibited. We can attach that under another sign, I think you said.
Right, because I was going to mention several streets are already identified as no vehicles over 6 wheels. And so the only thing that I was suggesting is that maybe we could augment that section or augment that sign with another sign saying Jake brakes prohibited, unless it's an emergency or something. Like, we can't tell them that they can't use their brakes, that they are in imminent danger. But we can add additional signage that underneath the sign that already says no trucks over 6 wheels, but trucks always use those routes anyway. So we can only add additional signage. That's not something that our department is able to to regulate. But
yeah, what happens is, and I had some truckers give us some advice on this, right? Because they know when they need to be used and don't need to be used. Is these trucks coming through areas that we have high residential in? You look up Dallas Highway right on the edge of houses, and these things will at times rattle your windows. And according to some of the local truckers, there is no reason to need those with these type of speed limits that we have in the city, and the fact that it's as flat as it is in general. Yes.
So if we already have signage that says no vehicles over 6, you said 6 wheels is what the sign says. Is that not enforceable?
it's not enforceable by our department because we
But
can't
it's
pull anyone
enforceable
over.
by the police department?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so if no vehicles over 6 wheels are traveling down this road, then this is pretty redundant anyways, right?
No, because that's not the roads it's for. It's for the roads that they're allowed on. But they can still use those brakes. 78, Dallas Highway, what are we?
I'm trying to understand how using your brakes is an enforceable.
It's a certain type of compression
The
brake. I
compression
should have
brakes
said
or the
those-
engine, the compression brakes and the engine brakes are different than the brakes. The engine brakes, because of how they're engaged, they let off a very loud noise outside
Right.
of what just regular braking would entail. And so
They're prohibited in Carrollton, and so I actually got their language out of their ordinance, but they're prohibited in a number of cities.
Right.
But
Yeah,
if
they
you
are,
can't
100%.
control the 6 wheel on certain highways that can't control them, how they gonna control this?
They can't say they didn't know if the signage is up. You can't always control litter, but it's still against the law, and they have the signs up, don't litter. If they catch you, it's not easy to catch you. But, yeah, it is law enforcement that enforces it, though. Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
Councilman McCoy.
Thank you. I have 2 questions or maybe comments. This would apply on Punkintown Road, correct? This ordinance would, but in that's a road that we already have where it says no trucks over 6 wheels. Do trucks over 6 wheels have an engine brake or a compression brake?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, do trucks under 6 wheels?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so in theory, if they adhered to that ordinance, that they should not be on that, and I'm talking about that particular road. I know there are other roads, and I'm going to come around to why I'm talking about that, is that they really shouldn't be on there if they have 6 wheels, and those are the type of vehicles that use this type of compression brake, correct?
You mean over 6 wheels?
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's late.
No,
I'm so sorry. But that's my point. And then my other point is that is a very kind of hilly road. Could someone argue anywhere in the city that they were if they get pulled over or if they have to go to court, they could always argue that it was an emergency situation, correct?
They could always argue that. I mean, we actually did write that Jake brakes may be used in emergency situations or when necessary to avoid imminent danger.
I mean, like a bunny came in front of my car last night in the dark, and that to me was a imminent danger. Well, it was the deer too; they were out there. But what I'm saying is that to me, I'm just saying as a comment. I know they make a lot of noise. Most of the time I've heard them is when I'm on the interstate, but I just feel like this is kind of redundant. That's just, I mean, if it makes everybody happy, I'm more than happy to vote for it, but it just seems kind of redundant and unenforceable, and I'm just making that note before I vote.
Chief, can you give a little insight as far as the legal side of this with being pulled over? You have to come to the mic.
I hear them a lot in
Sorry.
my office, which is right by 78. So I know. I mean, that's what it does.
Actually came as a result of some complaints of some citizens, including over like even by Peachtree Street
Yeah.
because of where they come down by Happy
I'm just
Valley.
curious as to the enforceability on this.
Well, I mean, it's one of those. It's going to be difficult, but obviously it's enforceable. Just like the trucks on Punkintown, is enforceable. It's just the officers being there and having time to do it or whatever. We're trying to dedicate days where they are enforcing that. I don't know enough about this brake thing. I've worked traffic most of my career. I did at Carrollton. I've never dealt with this, so I don't know enough about it to really give you an educated answer. I could research it and let you know, but I'm not really very sharp on that right now, to be honest.
I didn't know what it was either till I, that's Jake brake.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're out, we hear that, and there's a sign, then it can be enforced. So, yes, definitely enforceable, but it would be one I would have to educate the officers on, just like me. I'd have to get more educated on it. So, yes, ma'am, it can be enforced. I don't usually feel tall, thank you.
He puts it really, really, really low. Thanks, Chief. Are there any additional questions? Well, like he was answering, he would enforce a community development would not enforce it, but we did write the
Right,
the
you guys can't
language.
go out and give tickets on
No.
that sort of thing.
I have a question about the motion you put in here. It says direct staff to finalize the proposed amendment for adoption. So it doesn't sound like, we're directing you to finalize it for us to adopt it again. Doesn't sound like that's where we're going.
For staff recommendation?
Oh, you have a motion at the bottom.
Oh, the
of-
motion, okay.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not final, like amendment as submitted and direct staff to finalize the proposed amendments for adoption. Well, I guess, no, you'd be accepting it and then they'd go ahead and get it done and put it in.
Right.
Yeah,
If
there you
if
go.
you accept the how it's amended. There is a copy of how the text amendment would be written, so if you accept that.
Then you would direct staff to
Yes.
put it in the ordinance. I see, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
I think one good point, though, also on the no trucks thing on Pumpkin Town. I mean, it's no through trucks, so technically anyone coming down Mirror Lake Parkway, Pumpkin Town, any truck that's delivering to Publix or one of the facilities there could technically be using their Jake brake, you know, and traversing that part of the street. So just because it's no trucks allowed, that's no through trucks allowed. So trucks, you know, stopping in and making deliveries could still be doing that, so.
Yeah, basically it came about because of, there were several complaints from citizens that live in areas where trucks tend to come by. In your case, it's your office. That was not one of the complaints. And ran it by some citizens that are truckers in our community, got their opinions, got some feedback, sent that all to you all, and then asked them if they thought it would be, you know, useful, you know, or helpful. And according to these local truckers that are our citizens, they felt like it would be based on their life experience. Driving trucks, that's how we ended up here. So any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Do we need a public hearing on this one?
Yeah. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Actually, it's not a zoning ordinance. So.
Oh, that's right. We don't need a public hearing, okay.
But it's on the agenda. that
Yeah,
it's a
it says public hearing, but we don't have to.
You could have one, you don't have to have one.
I see. Okay, so it's not required in this case?
No, it's not a zoning ordinance.
Okay.
But we
all
did
right.
notice the agenda with it on it, so.
I will cross that out. And,
I think what you're saying is let's go ahead and have the hearing.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
If
think we
anybody's-
should, because
okay,
we
anybody
noticed the
appears to be
agenda
heard on this.
stating that it.
all right, is there
was on
anyone
there.
that would like to speak for or against this text amendment? All right, public hearing is closed. Revert back to the council. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the text amendments as submitted and direct staff to finalize the proposed amendments for adoption.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Motion passes 4-1.
I don't see no need.
And item E1 was removed from the agenda. We'll go to the city manager report.
I don't even know what to do with myself that we're presenting this before 10 o'clock. It's exciting. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Just trying to lighten the mood a little bit. It's almost the end of the night. It's hard to go last and keep everybody's attention. So same as always, we do a snapshot, you know, by department, completed, ongoing, future, to keep everybody apprised of what we have going on in the city. One thing I want to mention real quick before I get too far into it, a question was asked at the conclusion of the House Bill 581 public hearing, and I didn't want to talk in the middle of the meeting, but I did say that I would use my time and mention it. It said if a trust was an owner, would the homestead exemption apply? So I said I'll use my time at the mic. And trust ownership is a great form of estate planning, and it does not negate your ability to have a homestead exemption. So if you are planning your estate and putting your property in a trust, but you are the owner occupant and it is your primary residence, you would still qualify for a homestead exemption. So I said I would say it, so I wanted to make sure I got that in. So from the administration departments, we are continuing to meet biweekly in 2 teams as we move into our content and editing phase of our new website design process. We are tentatively scheduling our website migration to the new site for March, and our representatives are very busy ensuring the website delivers the content that our residents expect and need. The other team, so I said 2 teams, we are meeting on the opposite week to create our public service request app, kind of seen in the picture here. It's going to be the new form. It'll replace our report of concern in TextMyGov. This public service request app will have enhanced features which provide all items in one location. So you have a pin you can actually drop on the report of concern area, and you have the ability to attach a picture. So we're working on incidences now, and we're excited to be rolling this out as well. All of our end-of-year financial work is wrapping up, and the city's annual comprehensive financial report for the 2024 fiscal year will be completed in March. At that time, auditors and staff will present the final report to council, presumably at our March work session. As you heard from Ms. Lanford earlier tonight, the city released a request for qualifications for broker services in late November and reviewed the 17 of 19 responses that were received in January. And as she stated, 2 responses were not delivered in the required deadline. And earlier this month, the review committee met and narrowed the list from 17 respondents to 3 based on a number of evaluation criteria to include firm qualifications, key personnel, pharmacy experience, scope of services with wellness, and disease management, to name a few. The city also released an RFQ for the Safe Streets and Roads for the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. These responses were due at the end of December, and we brought forward the successful respondent for consideration last month. Keck & Wood was awarded the contract and began working on the city's action plan as we held an initial meeting to kick off the project earlier this month. We have currently identified the primary and secondary stakeholders. These teams will be key to identifying our needs early and helping us present options to the community later in the year. We are also in the process of reviewing our purchasing policy and plan to align some of the spending thresholds uniformly while also reviewing our local vendor preference for quantitative measures. And finally, we will host our health fair for our team members on March 20th. From our development services team, our courthouse roof in this beautiful building is now painted black to match the surrounding city buildings. The white flashing underneath is getting repaired, and a fresh coat of white paint has gone on, and it looks great. The police department flashing is being painted black last week, the rails, awnings, and doors have all been painted as well. The right side of the Avanti building has been painted and also looks amazing. And the handrails for our downtown parking lot were being installed last week. Paving for the downtown parking lot was set to begin today. Unfortunately, the weather did not cooperate. We will monitor the weather and reschedule the paving as soon as possible. The recreation department is going to get fresh interior paint in a couple of weeks, and the dumpster enclosure should be finished. I think it's almost finished now. From Falcon Designs, all of the relevant data has been collected for the Mirror Lake Boulevard left turn project. Wanted to take this time to interject. I do have some answers as well from last week's council meeting that I want to take this time to share. We talked about last week the left-hand turn lane and was there an option to look at the other side of the road? And here's a more elaborated response. We did not consider widening the left-hand turn lane from the center line towards the development to the south, which is where the Publix shopping center is, due to the following factors. There would be conflicts with existing stormwater, water main, telecom, conduit, and utility poles on the south side of the boulevard that would require relocation. At this moment, our design only impacts one water main gate valve and a few existing streetlights on the north side in contrast. Proposed widening on the south side would require the reconstruction of the existing grass slopes, decel lane, curb and gutter, commercial signs, sidewalk, and concrete islands associated with the private access, requiring more involvement with the developer and any existing commercial tenants, and would likely require construction easements. By widening from the existing center lane to the north, we were able to avoid affecting the hardscape features on the development side and only impact the existing multi-use path for that portion of the project. Proposed widening plan east of the private access will require modification to the existing guardrail on the boulevard regardless of lane placement due to the taper required for the left-hand turn lane storage area. By widening on the north side exclusively, we are only impacting one side of the existing guardrail instead of both. The proposed guardrail on the north is necessary due to the limited clear zone between drivers and the multi-use path adjacent to the boulevard and doubles as a shielding for the proposed retaining walls in the design. These factors altogether justify widening solely towards the north as it has the least impact on existing infrastructure and development while remaining the most cost-effective solution for the present conditions on the corridor. So the second question asked that I did not feel comfortable answering was about the pass lane. The GDOT standard for a right-hand pass lane includes a 100-foot minimum passing area with adequate tapers on either side to return to the original edge of pavement. Our concern with this option is the lack of a comprehensive traffic study showing the AM and PM peak hour queue lengths for vehicles turning left into the site access that could exceed this minimum length. The presence of 2 or more left-turning tractor trailers would partially block the tapers, creating an unsafe condition for passing traffic. The current left turn storage lane represented in the plans is per GDOT design policy manual and provides 230 feet of storage and a 50-foot taper, greatly decreasing the likelihood of this event. If the city chooses to pursue the passing lane option, we would need to investigate the site access traffic operations, and then he also attached GDOT manual specifications for that. So just wanted to provide the update for those questions. We are meeting tomorrow, and I'll have a more comprehensive plan provided in writing to y'all as well. Finally, we continue to work on our GIC initiatives with continued engagement with our community champions. We also completed our CHIP grant application and awarded an RFP for grant administrative services for the CHIP grant. And if we successfully receive funding, residential enhancements will assist the city with implementing an owner-occupied housing rehab program. The GIT committee met last week, and we are working on educational materials and branding for the Villa Rica Housing Initiative. The team intends to have a listening session open to the public on Thursday, March 6th at the library beginning at 6 p.m. More information will follow as we continue to support this team's efforts. And here's a really pretty slide that is obviously not me because it's amazing and gorgeous, and I do not have that skill set. So from the Parks and Recreation team, spring sports signups ended with 976 currently registered. This includes 516 in soccer, 7 full volleyball teams, and 83 registered for our newest sport this spring, track. The team worked with the building department team on RFPs for the gym floor and our downtown gymnasium, as well as bleacher replacements. We are truly excited for these enhancements to our facilities. Coming up next week, 2 winter break camp options. Also, we have Petals and Pinkies Tea Party, which looks like it's actually full, which is a good thing. Love our events. And we are planning new art classes to start in early 2025. There is a fishing and hunting expo in March, and we are planning a senior center fashion show. And coming this spring, we are also offering a 3-on-3 basketball program for our older youth. From our other recreation services, we went fines free for our public library. This brings us into the company of hundreds of libraries across the country, including nearly a third of the systems here in Georgia. This move was primarily due to increasing literacy levels for children and young adults. As you all know, a literate, educated workforce is the priority of our state and has been for the last several years, and continues to help us promote workforce readiness and keep Georgia the #1 state for business. One of our primary missions as a public library system is to promote literacy in our community, and by removing barriers for children and young adults to access age-appropriate books, materials, and we are fulfilling that mission. Some results from our Winter Wonderland, a little bit late, but didn't want to not include this. They collected just under $34,000 with ticket sales as their main source of revenue at $28,327. They also were successful with their hot chocolate and s'mores kits. They had almost 2,600 writers and 30 volunteers. Volunteers worked over 1,100 hours, and just want to thank them, as we never would have been able to pull this off without the hard work of our volunteers, and we're very grateful and appreciative for them. Currently ongoing now is our One Book, One Community reading event. So we are reading now, even though the festival is in the first week of April. Friends of the Library Trivia Night at Gabe's will be in March. This will be a great opportunity for anyone who wants to check out their new space. From our tourism board, they conducted the CVB board meeting, which resulted in Frank Pritchett and Camilla Chandler being approved as new board members. They also hosted Northwest Georgia Travel Association membership meeting with approximately 30 people who visited our wonderful city and included lunch at Lost Cowboys. They are currently working on digital marketing and PR media campaigns, and moving forward, they've got an ad for Atlanta Magazine issue in March, and they're focusing on our downtown festivals and events, particularly the new Art and Soul Festival held April 26th. Another future initiative is the touchscreen visitor kiosk looking to be installed in our downtown area. Main Street has been working on sponsorship packets as well as their 4-year assessment presentation next week, which will be held in Ackworth. We are in the planning stages for many of our events. Again, Art and Soul for the next one to be held April 26th. This will be a great combination of local artists and musicians putting their talent on display for our community. From our public safety team, we received all of the new Red Dot site equipment and completed all scheduled time out on the range. Officers have undergone training and this equipment is now fully deployed. Some of the events in December included the senior citizen gift delivery as well as Shop with a Cop. Want to again thank you to all of our community partners for your support of these programs. The SRT policy was approved by staff and our city attorney, and we have 2 in this new group that are headed to leadership training and will continue to rotate officers through training as needed for our special response team. Beginning last month, we are working on our annual report. And we want to again thank all of our officers and command staff for the work during our winter storm, Hora. The PD also completed a mock assessment for certification last month. This process and the feedback received helps us better prepare for the team for the real assessment, which will occur later this spring. Want to again congratulate Corporal Bishop for his 25 years of service to our city. What an amazing accomplishment. And wanted to spend just a moment real quick for all those listening in the audience and at home to read a commendation received for one of our officers this past month. Lieutenant, I am writing this memo to you to commend Officer Hamilton's actions on a suicidal person call February 1st at 0151 hours. Officer Hamilton and Sergeant Walden responded to a male subject straddling the guardrail on the bridge over I-20 on Highway 61. Officer Hamilton was the first on scene and immediately started building a rapport with the suicidal subject. Officer Hamilton drew from personal experiences and demonstrated her sympathy in a manner that led the suicidal person willingly to step back over the guardrail. Officer Hamilton held his hand and continued talking to him until West Georgia EMS arrived. The suicidal person willingly sought out help, in my belief, because of Officer Hamilton showing true caring and using the right words at the right time. This is not the first time that I've seen Officer Hamilton being able to connect with someone in distress, but it's the first time I've seen her ability to connect with a person in distress that saved a life. It was discovered that this 21-year-old man was bipolar and had recently suffered the loss of a family member and was having issues with his sister with whom he resides. Just wanted, yep. Oh.
It was Sergeant Finley that was the 25 years.
Oh my goodness.
That's okay.
Thanks.
But that's no problem. I would like to mention Michelle Landrum. Michelle had a stroke May 2023 and came back to full duty December 2024. Which included having to qualify, had to pass the physical, had to do everything to come back, and that is just a major accomplishment, and I'm just so proud of her.
So everybody can hear it. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Everybody hear me? Yeah, I didn't know the chief was going to do this tonight, but yeah, I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes to thank the chief and the mayor and council who've been so supportive during this process. Yet May 2023 absolutely changed my life, and we can talk about that experience, but I don't really, that's okay. I've come a long way. But what I'd really like to say is thank you to you all, and thank you to Chief. He doesn't get a lot of credit as much as he should, but he absolutely was there for me in my time of need. And it was something to wake up, and he was there. I don't remember a lot about having the stroke. I don't remember a lot about being at the hospital for a little while, but the one thing I do remember is every day he showed up. And when I went to the rehab hospital in Noonan, he showed up. And he showed up, and he kept showing up. And when I finally got to come home after 18 days, he came to my house, and he brought food. And he donated time to me, and he, along with the Carrollton Fraternal Order of Police, got together and did an amazing fundraiser for me. As you can imagine, my medical bills are pretty high. I was out of work a year and a half. But he never one time gave up on me. When I, at times, wanted to give up, I didn't think I was going to make it back, and I don't think a lot of people thought I'd make it back and be standing here today in uniform, but I'm here. And again, Chief, I really want to say thank you for your support, again, as he believed in me when I didn't know. And thank you.
Really hard to follow that. Should have put police at the end. Okay, I will try to keep going though. From our public works team, they completed the removal of all of our city holiday decor, as well as working with Main Street and third party for the removal of other items, and had a slight delays with weather. Continuing projects such as the 2024 paving, and I think last month we kind of went over in depth where we're at. As we are completed with the paving. We've got, I think, a little bit of final striping and a few speed humps that still need to be installed. But otherwise, the paving for 2024 is complete. The downtown parking lot continues to move forward. Again, we thought the paving would be done today. Unfortunately, the weather did not cooperate, so hope to have that rescheduled here very soon. We continue to coordinate with the installation of traffic calming signs and speed humps, and we recently programmed and installed the solar radar signs, flashing signs on Dallas Highway. They also did, again, just want to say they did an amazing job making sure roads were cleared during the winter weather storm Cora. Guys came in at 4:30, making sure everything was passable, and arrived again Saturday morning at 5, and they just did an excellent job. Really appreciative for everything they did during winter storm Cora. Finally, from our utilities team, who also, again, want to thank all of our teams who worked during Winter Storm Cora. Our team completed last month the new contract for water purchases with Douglas County Water Authority. And again, on a weekly basis, continue to work on water service line repairs, all of the preventative maintenance. Currently, our water production is kind of in the 1.2 to 1.4 million gallons per day, whereas wastewater is right about 1.76 million gallons per day. Ongoing projects include our shoreline force main, Cleghorn lift station, Church Street water main, which I believe was also intended to start this week. I'm not sure if the weather has delayed that as well, too. We're continuing to review and develop our various capital planning improvement strategies. And going forward into April, we're working to achieve the Water First designation renewal, and again, renew water plant operations permit. Always like to thank and give updates from some of our additional partners, Douglas County Chamber, as well as Carroll County and the Chamber. Douglas County had a big event last weekend. They had their winter ball. They presented several community service awards and other awards. The Sam P. Roberts Community Service Award was presented to the individual demonstrating exemplary service to the community over the last year, and that award winner was James Harper. They presented a Lifetime Achievement Award to the individual who has over time exhibited outstanding service in every aspect of giving to the community, and that award winner was Bo McLean. They also gave an award for Large Business of the Year, which recognizes the accomplishments and contributions of one business towards the economic health and vitality of Douglas County. And the award winner was West Georgia Technical College. They have a February Executives Unplugged luncheon event to explore strategic vision for Georgia's future. This February Executives Unplugged luncheon, presented by Wellstar Douglas Medical Center, will take place on February 18th. They're also excited to welcome Chris Clark, President and CEO of the Georgia Chamber, as he delivers into the 2025 Georgia Chamber strategic pillars, gain valuable insights into talent and workforce preparedness, infrastructure and energy competitiveness, and economic development, innovation, and entrepreneurship. as well as regional prosperity and healthy communities. They have a morning of networking with state delegation to represent Douglas business community on February 27th, and that event will begin at 8:30 again on Thursday, February 27th, and that is at the Georgia State Capitol. From Carroll County tomorrow and Carroll County Chamber, they recognize Star Student Membership Breakfast this morning. They have a coffee and conversations coming up with Wesley Stone, Director of Governmental Affairs for Systems and Methods, Inc., which is an opportunity to join others for a morning of casual conversations to learn more about SMI as a fourth generation family business and their keys to success. This will also involve information about the University of West Georgia Stone Center for Family Business, Entrepreneurship, and Innovation. The center is a resource for students and family businesses in West Georgia seeking to navigate both opportunities and challenges. The Chamber 101 will be held Wednesday, February 26th, and will help you learn more about the Chamber's mission, program, and events. You can discover tools and resources to grow your business, as well as explore ways to maximize membership benefits. Carroll County will continue to host its annual Susan A. Mabry 3-week Citizen Academy, which began last week, February 6th. In honor of Susan, this academy offers local citizens a better understanding of county government as volunteers and knowledge of ways to strengthen relationships between citizens and their local government officials. Topics include Carroll County history, community development, community services, public safety, and the court system. And finally, kind of down the line, but coming up, is the 70th anniversary annual meeting for the Carroll County Chamber to be held Saturday, May 3rd. From our Villa Rica cluster schools, this is a lot. They share with us a lot of information. There were several winners from the Bright Ideas Grant. And I'll just name a few. At Villa Rica Elementary, they had 4 teachers receive this grant. At Glansman Hines, they had Susie Gordon honored at the state capitol in January for being awarded as a Don Cargill STEM Scholar. Also, other at Sand Hill, they had Ashley Hassett as a Bright Ideas Grant winner. Ithaca is celebrating 3 students for placing at the Regional Tech Fair, and good luck to those in the picture below who will advance to the State Fair in McDonough. How exciting. Villa Rica Middle School, Jaden Barnes was recognized in January for scoring 500 points during middle school career. Proud of him in this commitment to academic excellence. From our Bay Springs Middle School, they had 8 teachers that won the Bright Ideas grants from Carroll EMC and will use the money to improve their classrooms. Villa Rica High School new classrooms opened and are being used by World Languages, and 4 of their teachers also won Bright Idea grants from Carroll EMC. Villa Rica High School mock trial team participated in the region competition on February 1st and had individual awards for both Best Witness and Best Attorney. And last week, the mayor and I were able to attend the Villa Rica Cluster on the Table meeting at Villa Rica High School. This meeting included principals as well as parents and guardians from all of the Villa Rica Cluster schools. We discussed various ongoing initiatives and projects within the cluster and what's going on, as well as their visioning for the future. This was a great session and provided excellent opportunity for feedback from our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have an executive session on the agenda. Mr. Drummond, would you explain?
Yes, we would need a motion to go. We would need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of meeting with legal counsel to discuss pending or threatened litigation, and also a meeting for authorization of negotiations to purchase, dispose of, or lease property.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we will leave regular session and move into executive session.